Welcome to my channel, where mysteries unfold, strange tales come to life, and the unexplained takes center stage. Here, we dive deep into eerie legends, unsolved cases, and supernatural phenomena that defy logic. Are you ready to step into the unknown? Brace yourself, keep an open mind, and join us as we uncover the world's greatest mysteries. Please listen to the story Daughter's Dreams. My name is Edmund, and here is Brandon's true scary story. All this started happening a month ago. I live in Ambridge, Pennsylvania, which is about 30 minutes north of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It's a really industrial kind of city. Everything's old and dated looking. It's mostly coal steel mines and construction places. I moved there last year, went through a divorce, found this apartment that is a really old building. It's really small, and right off of one of the main streets in Ambridge. I took it out of desperation. It was either that or move to Georgia with my family. I wanted to stay in Pennsylvania, my daughter's here, by moving to this apartment. Nothing much really happens for the first year. A month ago, I go to pick my daughter up from daycare. We're about halfway home at this point. My daughter starts telling me about this dream she has, where she's at her mom's house. These bad guys are opening up doors to her bedroom and the door that leads to her mom's room. These bad guys approach her, cut her face and her mom's face. I knew to take this kind of seriously. This dream that she was having. I knew it was more than just a nightmare. I've always been a spiritually sensitive person. My family is sensitive to it. I asked her, what do these bad guys look like? One is a ghost, and another one is a monster. That really disturbed me, just hearing that. My 3.5-year-old daughter is having these visions that she's seeing this happen. I didn't really have a response at the moment. I was awestruck. I changed the subject. But she just talked about it so nonchalantly. It just rolled off her tongue. I knew that this was something that a child her age can't make up on their own. I brought it up to her mom. Her mom kind of seemed to dismiss it. She's more of a skeptic. She thinks that it could just be her imagination, or she's having bad dreams. When I told my mom told me that I should do a cleanse of the apartment. She agreed with me. She agreed that there was no way for her to make that up. She thinks it could have been some kind of malevolent, demonic entity trying to attach itself to her. Those malevolent entities like to attach themselves to people who are in really vulnerable moments, times of despair or trauma, especially to children, because children are naturally more perceptive to the paranormal. Child of divorce seems like a good target for malevolent spirits. So I get her home that night, and it was almost instantaneous. The air in my apartment felt heavy. I live on the 3rd floor, the very top floor of this little apartment building. I didn't feel any tension or negativity until we got into my apartment. It was heavy, it was tense. It felt like any positivity was just being drained. From it, I could feel myself and my daughter. We both seemed to be getting angrier a lot quicker, easily frustrated and agitated. I kept having this looming anxiety the whole time. It kept lingering like that saying, when you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. That's what it felt like. I was in that anxious anticipation. I knew something was there, that something could happen. A few days go by of that feeling. Nothing really happens until one night. I put my daughter in bed. I do my nightly routine. I stay up for a little play, some video games, take a shower, all that stuff to wind down for bed. I get in bed and start drifting off to sleep. Start going into the onset of sleep paralysis. which I never experienced before. I do have sleep apnea. I have a feel for what sleep issues are like. I used to wake up a lot at night, but as soon as I got myself in bed, I was laying on my back while the CPAP started going. I start closing my eyes to drift asleep, and all of a sudden, my limbs start feeling really stiff and heavy, almost to the point of numbness. I wasn't in control of my body for a bit. I thought of paranormal stuff, in the association with sleep paralysis. Maybe if I can muster some kind of strength to move my body, I can break the sleep paralysis before it gets too bad. If I start trying to move one of my arms, I'm able to grab the closest thing to me, my phone that grounds me, and do my best to stay calm and not to panic. I'm able to sleep fine after. A few nights pass, and no other sleep paralysis incidents like that happen. But that tense feeling, that anticipation was still all there. I was so anxious. If my daughter woke up in the night crying, I would wake up, but I would just be frozen in fear. Part of me and my gut had this thought: if I go in there, what's going to be in there with her? I'm able to get up, I go in and I check on her. I see nothing. I'm able to calm her, tell her everything's okay, and go back to sleep. I'm still left in that state of fear of whatever's in there in that apartment with us. A week after the first sleep paralysis incident, I put her to bed, did my own thing for a couple hours, went to bed. I wake up and I have no idea what time of night it is. I didn't check my phone. I just naturally woke up from a dream. I look over from the foot of my bed, and on the wall to my right of that door frame is a shadow figure. My room's pitch black. It was blacker than that black. Absence of light completely. It had no discernible facial features. I couldn't see eyes, limbs, or anything. It just looked like a silhouette of someone's shadow being projected. I could tell it was looking at me. I just had that feeling. It was about the height of a child, probably 3.5, no taller than 4 feet tall, just staring there at me. My daughter's bedroom door is closed. I just knew what it was. I knew it was something malevolent. I knew it was something that wanted to feed off of whatever negativity there was, instead of speaking or trying to turn on the light and cast it out. I chose to ignore it and not show any kind of fear. I've always thought that if you feed into the sense of fear that they're trying to project onto you, that makes them stronger. I ignore it. I do my best to go back to sleep. When I wake up at my normal time, Shas a.m., to start getting my daughter ready for daycare and myself ready for work, it's gone. There's no trace of it whatsoever. Never would have even known it was there if I hadn't seen it myself. No other real encounters happened for a little while. Up next, as he comes across a medium, he gets a stern warning: stay with us. I was working on the process of moving in with my girlfriend the next weekend that I didn't have my daughter, and she was at her mom's. My girlfriend and I go to a flea market together. I like to look at antiques, old video games, and try to restore them. There happens to be a medium there. My girlfriend and I get to talking to her, making small talk, and learning more about her profession. I go back after that talk to the medium alone, tell her about my daughter's dreams and the kind of happenings that are going on. She gets this concerned look on her face, says you need to cleanse like now. She confirmed there is no way that a child her age has the kind of imagination to come up with what she's seen. In that level of detail, it was something strictly evil that was trying to attach itself to her. and it wanted to follow her from house to house. She suggested that both myself, and her mother should cleanse our respective houses. I buy sage and a smudging feather off of her. She gives me a bottle, a little cork bottle of holy oil for free, tells me to anoint my doorframe to my apartment with the shape of a cross, using the oil, and to recite the Lord's Prayer while I'm doing it. And I'll do the same thing with my daughter's forehead. The next time that I saw her, I told my mom that I had spoken with a medium. She said the medium was right, that after I do the cleanse, to close all the windows again, and put salt at the doorway and on the windowsills, to act as a seal, to keep the bad spirits from coming back in again. The next day, my girlfriend and I, after her kid goes down for his nap, we go to my apartment and get ready to do the cleanse. First, we saged ourselves once we got in, to keep any negativity from attaching onto us, to keep the spirits at bay. We put the sage in the dish and take the smudging feather, and I start walking around the apartment in a clockwise direction, just like the medium suggested that I do. I keep saying this prayer to cast out all negative spirits and energy, to bring love and peace back into the house by making a circle around the apartment. I get done with my daughter's room as soon as I go into the living room and start doing the cleanse. The front door that we left wide open, slammed itself shut out of nowhere, loud slammed with some force. I asked my girlfriend if she shut the door while I was cleansing. She tells me no, but I just saw it close itself. We finished the cleanse. We do the anointing with the holy oil, say the Lord's Prayer. We even anointed my daughter's door frames to her room, just to be safe, and left after that. I didn't go back to that apartment until the next day, when I had to pick my daughter back up from daycare. I put the oil on her forehead, say a prayer. She asks me what I'm doing. I tell her, this is to keep all negative things away from you, to keep you safe and happy. She goes, oh, okay, that's good, goes off on her own thing. Ever since then, there's never been an encounter. I haven't heard my daughter talk about nightmares or anything. The overall tension in the air, that whole feeling of negativity has gone away. It seemed like it worked, and I found out a couple things after the cleanse was done. Before the cleanse happened, whenever my daughter would wake up, in the middle of the night, her covers would be pulled off her or on the floor, or her stuffed animals that she slept with would also be on the floor. She has a toddler bed that has a guardrail by her side, that she sleeps if those were to fall. She would have to throw them, which maybe she did in her sleep too. But it is interesting to see that stopped happening after the cleanse. I do think that whatever was in there may have been doing that to mess with her in some way or to get to her, try to get attention. I did research on my apartment over in Ambrose. When I looked up the house history, I couldn't find anything on anyone who died there. I did find out it was built in 1914, but it's almost 110 years old and is seated right next to a funeral home. There's actually 2 parking lots. There's one parking lot at the building, for the funeral home specifically, and another parking lot for tenants. The combination of an old building in a really old, almost run-down city that happens to be next door to a funeral home just gives it a more creepy vibe and makes it seem like it could be more of a hotspot for paranormal things. I think it was something malevolent. I don't think it was a ghost at all. I don't think I've ever heard of or read anything about a ghost appearing, that solid black of a mass. I have heard that usually demonic entities will appear as shadows. That dark, and I have seen ghosts before, too. In the past, I've been able to make that mental comparison. When I saw it, it was something evil or demonic, trying to attach itself to my daughter, who had been going through the trauma that she had been going through in the past year. When I talked to my mom about it, she asked if her mom or I watch any scary movies while she's in bed. Or maybe she hears stuff I told her no. I would never watch anything like that when my daughter's around. My mom is a spiritual person. She's almost Wiccan, but she practices more the light side of it, healing. Cleansing, she does talk to spirits, mainly my grandfather, her dad, that died a few years ago, when I told her about the cleanse that we were going to do to get rid of the spirit attacking my daughter and me. She brought out divination rods while I was on the phone with her. They're dowsing rods. People have used them to also talk to spirits. The concept that if you let go of the rods, the spirits will manipulate them and move them to kind of make signs. She brought out divination rods, started talking to my grandfather through them. Every time I started talking, she had me on speakerphone. The rods would point to me. I asked if my grandfather had seen her before, in their old house when we used to visit after he died. They said yes. My mom asked if my grandfather would offer some kind of comfort or help protect my daughter and me, to drive this bad spirit out. The rods were again pointing to yes. It did kind of bring a comfort and kind of relieve some of my anxiety. Just knowing that, even though I was going to my apartment to cast out something evil, potentially demonic that I had helped to. On the other side, in the form of my grandfather, wanting to still watch over me, and his great-granddaughter. It all stopped kind of suddenly and abruptly, like after the cleanse. She hasn't said that she's seen anything, or had any dreams like that since. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. See you soon. See you soon. Please listen to the story, The Ghosts at Grandma's House. I was 9 years old. We lived in a small city in Tennessee. Most of the things started happening after my grandmother passed away. It was a really gloomy day. I was standing in the kitchen looking out the window. I got this little inkling like she's gone. He had just visited her in the hospital. She wasn't doing the best. By the time I got home, I just got this feeling like she's gone. I was overcome like grief. My mom came in, looked at her, and my mom was like, "Mama's gone." We had the funeral. And, a couple days after, I was getting ready for school. I had my uniform shirt out, laid out on the bed. I was like, oh, I forgot something, and I ran in the closet to grab what I needed. When I returned, my clothes were gone. None of my siblings in the house. My mom was in the kitchen. I look at the bed. I was confused. Like, where are my clothes? I look under the bed. On both sides of the bed in the drawers. I go into the living room, and I'm looking there, thinking maybe I time jumped or something. I don't know. I didn't know what to think. I was standing there confused. Where are my clothes? I know I put my clothes right here on the bed. Someone was whispering in my ear. It was a feeling. So I go in the closet. I'm following the feeling. I say out loud, "All right." I put my clothes back or something to that effect. I counted to 5. 1, 2, 3/4 Unsolved. I go back out into the room. My clothes are right there on the bed. It freaked me out I wasn't crying, screaming, or until my mom freaked out. I was more curious, like what just happened. The weird part is my clothes are on the bed. I laid them neatly. When they were placed back on the bed, it looked like they were just thrown there really quick, not neatly placed like how I had just laid them. I knew all right. I'm not losing my mind as a 9-year-old. I find it so odd that after my grandmother passed away, this happens in the back of my head. I'm like she was playing a joke on me. Maybe she hadn't crossed over yet. She just wanted to let me know I'm here. She wasn't a jokester when she was alive or anything, but I feel like that was her way of letting me know I'm here. I hope that's what it was. That's what I tell myself for comfort. She did it. She just play a little joke on me. They say, you get a new body and new spirit when you cross over. Maybe she's her young self again and just like, I'll play a little joke on you. I didn't tell anyone in my family. I don't even think I've told my mom. I've told friends. Of course, everybody's like, what? I'm like, number. This really happened? I'm not crazy. But I've never told anyone in my family. When you're that young and something like that happens, it's just like a part of the kid imagination. That really just like shrugs it off. She had a house shortly after she passed away. We ended up moving into her house. My bedroom had a mirror, like the mirrors that built into the doors. I don't know if they still do that nowadays. But the mirror was built into the door. There's a full body mirror. There was this imprint of a shadow of a person in the mirror. From the shoulders up, it was almost like the person peeking. It just stayed there, imprinted in the mirror. It was a lady. She had this little top bun. I didn't pay it any mind. Nothing weird ever happened in that house. No funny noises or anything like that. We moved from Tennessee to a different state. We did a little moving around, and then we finally settled. We got this little 1-story house. It was a really simple layout. Walk in the door, the living room's to the right. But you can also walk in the living room and go to the other side of the wall and walk through to the kitchen. So it's a circle front door. Living room, you can go to the kitchen. You can just go around like that. To the left was the hallway. My room was on the left. There was a corner room. My mom room on the right, and the bathroom across from my room. One night, I was in a house. There was a lamp that sat on the opposite side of the living room. Anything in front of that lamp creates a shadow to the other side of the room before you enter into the kitchen. From the opposite side of the living room, there was a back door and short blinds on that door. I look up one night, and there's that same shadow of the top bun lady. I'm a little bit older this time, 15. I was like, okay, this isn't normal. There's no way that whatever it is could follow me. I'm thinking it's follow me. I never had an ill feeling about it. Never felt scared or anything. Maybe it's my grandma. Maybe it's her protecting me. I did everything to erase this shadow, moving stuff around, creating the shadow because I don't want to be crazy. Nothing removed the shadow from there. A little bit after that, I was in the house, looking down the hallway. I look up, and I see the face in the corner of the hallway. Very light, transparent. I call this ghost George Washington. Haha, that's exactly what he looks like. I never seen like his whole body. It was just the face there in the corner. I'm trying to register what's going on. And I'm like, I didn't see that. No, didn't see it. I don't know what that's about. After that, I'm in my room falling asleep. My room always gave me weird vibes, not enough to freak me out. They say don't sleep with a mirror facing your bed, and I don't to this day. I wake up one night for no reason. I open my eyes. The George Washington is right there in my face, looking directly at me. I shut my eyes, and I started praying. I never seen George Washington again after that. I'm hoping he was a friendly ghost, I don't know. After that, there was a corner room in the back of the hallway. My mom turned into a small dead area. Had a TV and a little lounge couch. Me and my mom are in that room one night. There's a window in that room that faces the road, the neighborhood street. There's a cul-de-sac right there. In that cul-de-sac starts the next street, with the row of houses on the opposite side. I don't know what to call this. It wasn't a ditch was really deep, but it was this really steep hill. It was a great sledding hill. But once you get down in there, it will be hard to come back up out of there, in that little ditch area. It was these pipes, these white pipes, and it ran to the other side of the neighborhood. I don't know if that was electrical or water. I have no idea. All I know is it was a really steep hill. Me and my mom were in this room one night, and I was prompted to look out the blinds. I see this guy come up out of that cul-de-sac area. He has on his white t-shirt and jeans. He had dark hair. He stands in the middle of the coldest SEC. I'm looking, what is this guy doing? He's just standing there. Looks frantic, like he's panicking. He didn't look like he was on a neighborhood stroll. Where did he come from? There's nobody. Just casually walking around down in there like... I'm looking at him. I closed the blinds. I was like, oh crap, this guy just see me looking at him. I opened the blinds, and he's standing in the middle of the cul-de-sac still. Then I see the headlights from a car approaching. He sees the lights and runs to the opposite sides, down the street with the row of houses, but he runs into the backyard of the very first house. I open the blinds again. I'm curious. Is he gonna come back out of that backyard? I need to let my mom know. There's some creepy guy in somebody's backyard, running around outside. Maybe we should alert the neighbors. Of course I see nothing, but he comes right back from the same side. It was like take two in a movie scene. Everything happened exactly the same. He looked at me. The car lights approach again. The same thing, he sees the car lights. He takes off behind the same house. I do remember being at the bus stop, telling my friends about it. And they were like, oh. One of my friends was like, there's a little girl at my house. She calls my name. Tiffany said the little girl be in the house, like Tiffany, who's calling her name. Another girl said a little boy running around her house. We just came to the conclusion we're on the aerial land or something like. What's going on in this neighborhood? A year or two ago, my niece called me, was like, hey auntie, can you come pick me up? Cancel my address. I'm driving and I'm like, oh crap. I'm going back to my old neighborhood. I never wanted to go back to this place again. I didn't want my wheels touching the ground of this neighborhood. I get there and I'm texting her like, come on please, like hurry up. So she's like, why are you acting like that? And I told her the story. Creeped her out well. I'm driving to get out of the neighborhood. And lo and behold, I'm coming down that same street and ended up right at that house that the ghost guy ran behind. When he received the car light, I'm telling you, this is the ditch. Do you see what I'm talking about? You can't just walk down there. You can't just come back up. She was like, auntie, let's get out of this neighborhood, haha. I was like, yeah, let's go, let's get out of here. I show her the house. When I rolled past the house, like my arms just stood up because I'm like, I left the energy here. I don't want it to recognize me. Her story continues right after this stay with us, after we moved to the new state. I had experienced sleep paralysis once or twice. I don't know, it's because we were adjusting, and I was just acceptable because I was young. Mine was more of, I'm sleeping. I'm waking up and I'm held down by something. I grew up Christian, so I would always call on the name of Jesus, and it will stop immediately. After a while, it stopped completely. I guess it was like this girl got God power. We can't mess with her. The one experience that stands out the most. I was in high school. It was finals week. Finals week are stressful. It was senior year finals. At that, it was makeup break. I was laying in my bed, and I felt something sit on my bed. All of a sudden, I hear my daddy call my name. I'm laying on my right side. It comes on the left side, spoons me. My daddy used to be a pastor, so I don't know if that was my angel or something. But I hear my daddy call my name, and it releases me. I know this is an episode of sleep paralysis. I'm able to look over my shoulder at my door. I see this black figure open the door and shut it. After that, I was able to jump up. I go out into the living room and I'm like, Dad, Dad. There's no one in the house. Not a soul. I call my dad. He's like, I'm at work. Did you call my name? He's like, I'm at work. Hey, I haven't been touched by anything ever before. Just seeing stuff that will really freak me out. For sure. All of my experiences freak me out. But when that thing spooned me, I was like, what is this? Was this real? Now that I'm older, I know like to not give it your energy. Don't acknowledge it. Don't give it anything. I just pray. I keep God first. I ask him to protect me, and that's what he does. I think the last sleep paralysis episode I had was 3 years ago. I battled between sleep paralysis and astral projection. Remember being in my room one night. I never lay on my back. I lay on my back. I remember feeling like I was floating. I can see my bedroom door, my wall, and I'm like, why am I floating? After that, I woke up. Why was I floating if it was sleep paralysis? I would have noticed something holding me down. I legit felt like I was floating. Maybe it could have been a dream when I have heard stories. Maybe it wasn't that, maybe. Maybe I was just sleeping. I love true scary stories. I was even debating for a while to do it, because I don't want to feed my experiences. I'm telling my boyfriend, I think this is a way to get it off my chest. There's a community of us. Haha, I was like, I just need to get this all out and tell my story. I'm not the only one. Ever since I've been listening, I'm immediately was hooked. I was like, maybe I should listen to these podcasts. I think you mentioned listen at your own risk. 'Cause like, oh God, was that confirmation to stop? I can, but I can't. I buy a lot of chapstick because I'm always losing them. I lost one of my chapsticks and could not find this thing. I mean, for weeks, I was getting ready, and my chapstick just rolled across the floor. The one that I lost. I heard it hit the floor and roll. I looked at the floor. Where has this been? Did this thing just hit the floor? And I started praying because I'm like, we're not doing this. We are not doing this anywhere. I move to before I bring any of my stuff in. I walk around. I pray. Bless my place. So I'm like, all right, time to like walk around and pray and bless again, because I don't know where this came from. or who is here, but you are not welcomed at, oh, you can never show yourself. You can never reveal yourself. You have to go now. That was the most recent thing that happened. And I was like, I'm definitely telling this story. I know I should listen to these podcasts at my own risk. Because you can't attract that energy. It's real, you can attract it. We all have to know our way to repel it. When it's through stones or prayer or sage. At the end of the day, it's just spiritual. You can get rid of it all. To share your own story, head on over to truescarystory.com and for ad-free listening. Scaryplus.com, you can get in touch with us at any time. Over at scary.fm on TikTok and Instagram. Or you can find me at Edwin Cove. That's EDWINCOV over on Instagram and TikTok. Links to everything are in the description of this episode. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. See you soon. See you. Please listen to the story Ghosts of the Beach House: A Family's Encounter. Growing up, I had a lot of paranormal experiences. They were super subtle sensitivity to energies, noticing things in the home, hearing things when I was growing up in Fredericksburg, Virginia, if you're unfamiliar with the place. There was a lot of battles that happened. In Fredericksburg, Virginia, there's a lot of paranormal activity. They do a lot of Civil War, Revolutionary War reenactment. My grandfather was a home inspector. He would take me on a lot of his home inspections, and he would tell me scary stories about the property. We would hear footsteps, and one time he was in a foyer of an old colonial home. A pot flew across. A lot of the times his equipment was moved. One time I was with him and we came back inside the house. I looked down on the floor. The door was open. There was 2 muddy handprints and 1 muddy footprint for about 6 or 7 steps, as if somebody was crawling, because they didn't have a leg anymore. All of this was fun and games for me, until I had the experience I'm about to tell you about. It happened a couple of years ago, in a different location, Topsail Island, North Carolina. Topsail Island, it was a massive hub for pirates. People think that they can still see Blackbeard's ship on the horizon. People also think that it might be the last resting place of Blackbeard's treasures. Topsail Island has a significant amount of energy. I had none of this information. When my family booked a vacation in Topsail, they were renting the beach house. When my family booked this vacation, I did travel all the way from Pennsylvania. Down to Topsail, I was already pretty tired. The drive was a couple of hours. For 6, I think my boyfriend at the time. He picked me up, drove me all the way down. I slept a little bit in the car, but I was still really groggy. When I arrived at the beach house, it was not scary at all. It was a white house on stilts. The area surrounding was very swampy, but nothing that alerted me to anything. It was about 2-ish o'clock in the morning. I had just woken up. I was super groggy. I wasn't aware of what was going on. I'm locked on the door. My grandfather. He opened up the door. They both were whispering. They were tired. No one else was in the house. We said our greetings. It was cordial. Come in, okay? Thank you. Let's go to bed. My grandparents requested that my boyfriend and I sleep in separate rooms. They pointed me to the back room where I would sleep. It was through the kitchen. His room was closer to the front entrance and had a loft bedroom upstairs. I remember going into that room and feeling the heaviest weight I have ever felt in my entire life. This should have sent off some sort of ringer in my head, but it didn't. I was so tired. It was this really dense, thick smog kind of feeling. The feeling that hits you in the center of your chest, on your back, on your shoulders. I completely ignored it, and I had no other thoughts in my mind. Just unpack your stuff and get to bed. And I was unpacking these. These thoughts were not my own. I felt the energy of my past relatives. My great-grandmother was there. My great-grandfather was there. My great-aunt, they were there to protect me, to take care of me, and I just ignored it. I picked the bed, and that was closest to the back patio. I fell asleep. Enough time had passed. We are creeping into the 3 o'clock hour. We are creeping into the witching hour. I don't even know how long I was asleep. I was woken up by a pressing into the bed. I was not shook. I was not nudged. Nothing fell. I was pressed. Like somebody had put their hands on either side of my chest and pressed me into the bed. It was constant. It was rhythmic and very heavy. I could feel the sides of the pillow curl around my head. My head was being pressed into the bed. Of the pillow was touching the sides of my face. I've had sleep paralysis before. This is not sleep paralysis. I was hit with that overwhelming feeling. My relatives are there. It was a chatter. It was very noisy in my head. I remember being unable to move. I opened my eyes. It was an operation. 6 inches from my face, it was the blackest black, but also had outlines I could tell was a woman. Her eyes were sunken in. They were pitch black. Her hair was floating. It was gray. It was coming out at all ends like Medusa, like she was in water. Her mouth was open like a snarl, latching onto somebody wide open. Her teeth were all sharp. She had white markings on her face, 2 that were going vertical, 1 on her forehead to her hairline, 1 down her chin, and 2 horizontal on the sides of her cheeks, as if somebody had put their fingers in paint and smeared them across their cheeks. This encounter seemed to go on forever. It felt like time had stopped. I was absolutely paralyzed. I remember sitting there in complete and utter fear, staring at this figure. I remember feeling like my breath was taken out of my chest. She was pulling it from me. I remember trying to scream and not being able to. I knew that. My own essence was starting to get compromised. All of a sudden, at once, I remembered that what you do in these moments is you remind the entity that you are the one that's alive. I shut my eyes and I started screaming. I'm alive, you are not. I'm here, you're not wanted here. All the while, I felt like my family was there. They were fighting this with me. It was completely chaotic and not of my own imagination. Suddenly, she was gone. The chatter stopped. The pressing stopped. I could breathe again. I could talk again. I ran into my boyfriend's room at the time. I remember saying to him, I either had a very vivid dream or I just saw a ghost. He had also had his own apparition that he experienced at a different time and a different location, and he went, oh, okay. Well, let's go to bed. I remember going to bed that night and not believing it. The next morning, I woke up and I told my family. I was very vague about it. They joked about it and went, oh, maybe it's haunted. And I was like, okay, maybe, and we moved on with our day. They didn't take me seriously at all. Even though my grandfather had had experiences in his past, as well as my grandmother. She even captured an apparition in Fredericksburg with her camera sitting in a pew. My family is relatively sensitive, but we have never dabbled with anything that was dark, deliberately messing with us in any way. We went out. learned all about the pirates and tops and everything. That night, we as a family were playing Monopoly. The kitchen table was right next to my bedroom door. It was just fine. We had lots of laughs. And my grandmother said, "Okay, I'm gonna go to bed." And my boyfriend was like, "Okay, I'm just gonna go to bed. It's just my grandfather and I in the kitchen, cleaning up the board." He goes to my door. He stops and he stares. He looks back at me and says, "You're right. The pressure changes at night." And I went, "Okay. Well, I'm not going to spend the night there. I'm not going to sleep in that room. Never again." He went, "I don't blame you. I don't blame you. I don't blame you." And I spent the night within my boyfriend's room, who had a twin bed. It wasn't an ideal situation. The next morning I wake up, and I hear my grandmother from the top of the stairs say in almost a joking way, "Baka saw the ghost." And Baka is the name that I call my grandfather. I went, "What?" She was joking. But my grandfather, he was really shaken. He comes downstairs. He says at about 3 a.m, he was woken up by being pressed into the bed. This is a detail that I did not tell him. When he woke up, he kept his eyes closed and he turned over to my grandmother, who was to his right. He said annoyingly, "Pat, why? Why are you waking me up? She's still kind of asleep." "Doug, I'm not doing that." In that moment, he hears his wife's voice next to him. He opens his eyes. He sees a tall, black, shadowy figure in a top hat, sitting in the chair at the foot of the bed. He said to her then, "Who is sitting in that chair?" When she woke up, he turned to her. It was gone. I decided to sleep in the same room as my grandmother. I remember having the light on the whole time and having this unmistakable pressure surrounding me, constantly like chatter in my head, static around me. The energy was off, and my eyes were fixated on the foot of the bed. The moment that 3 a.m. passed, I turned over, looked at the clock, and I think it was 3:05, 3:10. Suddenly I was able to fall asleep. We told the owners of this house what had happened. They said, "Oh, you've never had any ghost encounters before." So I put it to bed, whatever that was. That was very much real. It became my ghost story. During COVID, I was flipping through some streaming service. There was some documentary style on sleep paralysis. They showed a picture of a sleep paralysis demon called the Old Hag. It was an artistic rendering, I think done over 100 years ago, and I froze. It's exactly what I had seen that night. There are other renderings of the old tag. That didn't quite fit the bill, but this one did. The sunken black eyes, the open mouth, the vampiric teeth, the floating gray hair, and the pressing on the chest, and it sent shivers up and down my spine. I found out that there are predominantly 2 sleep paralysis demons that have been known throughout centuries, throughout millennia, and across the world. Everybody's stories are exactly the same. It is pressing into the bed, stolen breath, something staring at you. The old hag sits on your chest, and the other one is called the Shadow Man. Shadow Man stands at the foot of your bed. He's oftentimes seen wearing a top hat. Putting this together, I realized I had seen the old hag. And the following night, my grandfather had seen the Shadow Man. We had no previous experience or knowledge of this. We were just 2 people that have had paranormal experiences before. Maybe these demons latched onto us that night because we were open. I have made certain that I am not as vulnerable as I was. That night, I found out that some people have had recurring visits from these demons, and it often happens because they are so vulnerable. I don't know if it was just age, but I have been way more receptive to the paranormal. I can see things, apparitions, and Elisa's story continues right after this. Stay with us. My ex-partner I was living with a couple of years ago, he was a big skeptic when I told him this. He would shrug it off. One night, I was really trying to understand, what is this? Is this something that I have now? What is this? I was woken up by him screaming in bed, shrieking. I turn over, I see him. He pushed himself up on the bed, trying to get away from something. He was staring at the door. He told me I saw a tall, black, shadowy figure standing in the doorway with a hat on. I don't know if he experienced the shadow man at that one point, but ever since then, he's only had brief experiences with hearing his grandfather, his grandmother. One time he saw his grandfather in a car door, but he's really had nothing significant since then. There was an apparition attached to an old, vintage vanity of mine that I've had for years. It was an elderly woman. This person was in my house at the same time. We looked up and he went, "It's a woman. Older woman, tall." I went, "White hair, Victorian." He went, "Yes. She's good, though she's just lost. I have actually been able to help a friend who lost her husband, unfortunately, to suicide. This was completely unintentional. I was chatting with her at a pool party. She started opening up to me, and suddenly her past husband was there. I was able to tell her things about him that she had not told me. I knew where he was touching her and how he was touching her. She started breaking down and crying. I don't know if that experience with that demon changed something in me that made me more open. But you bet I sage my house every day. I don't ever sleep on my back anymore. I just don't want to recreate that night. But it does seem that once these sleep demons enter your life, you become a little bit more attuned to the paranormal, I guess. Just had a lot of significant encounters since then. I used to live by an old iron mill, and I watched my dog get spooked by something, and at the same time I felt that pressure. The other night, I watched my other dog alert to the corner of a room where we have kind of an altar for my deceased dog that just passed. I watched him stare in that corner and alert to it, try to smell the air, and once again, I felt that pressure, but it was positive. When it passed over me, I felt a wind on my face. I just have a lot of these experiences nowadays, that it seems kind of normal. That veil has been thinned in a way. Still to this day, I haven't had any more encounters with her. I don't want to have any more encounters with her. Maybe I wasn't the right kind of energy she wanted to feed off of. People will chalk it up to, "Oh, you were sleeping," and if you do some research on it, people don't actually know what sleep paralysis is. They don't understand why it happens. If someone has experienced sleep paralysis before, they know that it's completely different than being manipulated and seeing a demon. That was very different. I don't know if I can find that picture, but if you Google old hag demon, somebody put this depiction in a nurse's outfit. It's like blue-purple colored is the hue of the painting, just the way that her mouth is open and her hair is standing on end, and how she's touching whomever she's sitting on. It's very similar to what I experienced. I don't know the origin. We have all of our theories on what demons could be. My personal theory is that demons are spirits that are stuck, that have been stuck for so many years. They become poltergeist and become demons. That's just my personal theory, whoever the old hag and the shadow man are. They are ancient. They are millennia old. If you do some digging, you can find that there are encounters that people have had that are centuries old all across the globe. For me, that just validates it even further. Have you ever experienced sleep paralysis? Let me know in the comments or through Instagram. I'll leave my contact information in the description of this episode. I'm on there as Edwin Cove. That's EDWINCOV. And if you have a story that you want to share, head on over to True Scary Story. Communications subscribers, I'll talk to you in the next episode. And thank you, everyone that has tried Scary Plus over on Scary Plus. I really appreciate your support. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. See you soon. See you soon. Please listen to the story Daughter's Dreams. My name is Edmund, and here is Brandon's true scary story. All this started happening a month ago. I live in Ambridge, Pennsylvania, which is about 30 minutes north of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It's a really industrial kind of city. Everything's old and dated looking. It's mostly coal steel mines and construction places. I moved there last year, went through a divorce, found this apartment that is a really old building. It's really small, and right off of one of the main streets in Ambridge. I took it out of desperation. It was either that or move to Georgia with my family. I wanted to stay in Pennsylvania, my daughter's here, by moving to this apartment. Nothing much really happens for the first year. A month ago, I go to pick my daughter up from daycare. We're about halfway home at this point. My daughter starts telling me about this dream she has, where she's at her mom's house. These bad guys are opening up doors to her bedroom and the door that leads to her mom's room. These bad guys approach her, cut her face and her mom's face. I knew to take this kind of seriously. This dream that she was having. I knew it was more than just a nightmare. I've always been a spiritually sensitive person. My family is sensitive to it. I asked her, what do these bad guys look like? One is a ghost, and another one is a monster. That really disturbed me, just hearing that. My 3.5-year-old daughter is having these visions that she's seeing this happen. I didn't really have a response at the moment. I was awestruck. I changed the subject, but she just talked about it so nonchalantly. It just rolled off her tongue. I knew that this was something that a child her age can't make up on their own. I brought it up to her mom. Her mom kind of seemed to dismiss it. She's more of a skeptic. She thinks that it could just be her imagination, or she's having bad dreams. When I told my mom told me that I should do a cleanse of the apartment. She agreed with me. She agreed that there was no way for her to make that up. She thinks it could have been some kind of malevolent, demonic entity trying to attach itself to her. Those malevolent entities like to attach themselves to people who are in really vulnerable moments, times of despair or trauma, especially to children, because children are naturally more perceptive to the paranormal. Child of divorce seems like a good target for malevolent spirits. So I get her home that night, and it was almost instantaneous. The air in my apartment felt heavy. I live on the 3rd floor, the very top floor of this little apartment building. I didn't feel any tension or negativity until we got into my apartment. It was heavy. It was tense. It felt like any positivity was just being drained From it, I could feel myself and my daughter. We both seemed to be getting angrier a lot quicker, easily frustrated and agitated. I kept having this looming anxiety the whole time. It kept lingering like that saying, when you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. That's what it felt like. I was in that anxious anticipation. I knew something was there, that something could happen. A few days go by of that feeling. Nothing really happens until one night. I put my daughter in bed. I do my nightly routine. I stay up for a little play, some video games, take a shower, all that stuff to wind down for bed. I get in bed and start drifting off to sleep. Start going into the onset of sleep paralysis, which I never experienced before. I do have sleep apnea. I have a feel for what sleep issues are like. I used to wake up a lot at night. But as soon as I got myself in bed, I was laying on my back while the CPAP started going. I start closing my eyes to drift asleep. And all of a sudden, my limbs start feeling really stiff and heavy, almost to the point of numbness. I wasn't in control of my body for a bit. I thought of paranormal stuff in the association with sleep paralysis. Maybe if I can muster some kind of strength to move my body, I can break the sleep paralysis before it gets too bad. If I start trying to move one of my arms, I'm able to grab the closest thing to me, my phone that grounds me, and do my best to stay calm and not to panic. I'm able to sleep fine after. A few nights pass, and no other sleep paralysis incidents like that happen. But that tense feeling, that anticipation was still all there. I was so anxious. If my daughter woke up in the night crying, I would wake up, but I would just be frozen in fear. Part of me and my gut had this thought, if I go in there, what's going to be in there with her? I'm able to get up, I go in and I check on her. I see nothing. I'm able to calm her, tell her everything's okay, and go back to sleep. I'm still left in that state of fear of whatever's in there in that apartment with us. A week after the first sleep paralysis incident, I put her to bed, did my own thing for a couple hours, went to bed. I wake up and I have no idea what time of night it is. I didn't check my phone. I just naturally woke up from a dream. I look over from the foot of my bed, and on the wall to my right of that door frame is a shadow figure. My room's pitch black. It was blacker than that black. Absence of light completely. It had no discernible facial features. I couldn't see eyes, limbs, or anything. It just looked like a silhouette of someone's shadow being projected. I could tell it was looking at me. I just had that feeling. It was about the height of a child, probably 3.5, no taller than 4 feet tall, just staring there at me. My daughter's bedroom door is closed. I just knew what it was. I knew it was something malevolent. I knew it was something that wanted to feed off of whatever negativity there was, instead of speaking or trying to turn on the light and cast it out. I chose to ignore it and not show any kind of fear. I've always thought that if you feed into the sense of fear that they're trying to project onto you, that makes them stronger. I ignore it. I do my best to go back to sleep. When I wake up at my normal time, Shas a.m., to start getting my daughter ready for daycare and myself ready for work, it's gone. There's no trace of it whatsoever. Never would have even known it was there if I hadn't seen it myself. No other real encounters happened for a little while. Up next, as he comes across a medium, he gets a stern warning, stay with us. I was working on the process of moving in with my girlfriend. The next weekend, that I didn't have my daughter, and she was at her mom's. My girlfriend and I go to a flea market together. I like to look at antiques, old video games, and try to restore them. There happens to be a medium there. My girlfriend and I get to talking to her, making small talk, and learning more about her profession. I go back after that talk to the medium alone, tell her about my daughter's dreams and the kind of happenings that are going on. She gets this concerned look on her face, says you need to cleanse like now. She confirmed there is no way that a child her age has the kind of imagination to come up with what she's seen. In that level of detail, it was something strictly evil that was trying to attach itself to her, and it wanted to follow her from house to house. She suggested that both myself, and her mother should cleanse our respective houses. I buy sage and a smudging feather off of her. She gives me a bottle, a little cork bottle of holy oil for free, tells me to anoint my doorframe to my apartment with the shape of a cross, using the oil, and to recite the Lord's Prayer while I'm doing it. And I'll do the same thing with my daughter's forehead. The next time that I saw her, I told my mom that I had spoken with a medium. She said the medium was right, that after I do the cleanse, to close all the windows again, and put salt at the doorway and on the windowsills, to act as a seal, to keep the bad spirits from coming back in again. The next day, my girlfriend and I, after her kid goes down for his nap, we go to my apartment and get ready to do the cleanse. First, we saged ourselves once we got in, to keep any negativity from attaching onto us, to keep the spirits at bay. We put the sage in the dish and take the smudging feather, and I start walking around the apartment in a clockwise direction, just like the medium suggested that I do. I keep saying this prayer to cast out all negative spirits and energy, to bring love and peace back into the house by making the circle around the apartment. I get done with my daughter's room as soon as I go into the living room and start doing the cleanse. The front door that we left wide open, slammed itself shut out of nowhere, loud slammed with some force. I asked my girlfriend if she shut the door while I was cleansing. She tells me no, but I just saw it close itself. We finished the cleanse. We do the anointing with the holy oil, say the Lord's Prayer. We even anointed my daughter's door frames to her room, just to be safe, and left after that. I didn't go back to that apartment until the next day, when I had to pick my daughter back up from daycare. I put the oil on her forehead, say a prayer. She asks me what I'm doing. I tell her, this is to keep all negative things away from you, to keep you safe and happy. She goes, oh, okay, that's good, goes off on her own thing. Ever since then, there's never been an encounter. I haven't heard my daughter talk about nightmares or anything. The overall tension in the air, that whole feeling of negativity has gone away. It seemed like it worked, and I found out a couple things after the cleanse was done. Before the cleanse happened, whenever my daughter would wake up, in the middle of the night, her covers would be pulled off her or on the floor, or her stuffed animals that she slept with would also be on the floor. She has a toddler bed that has a guardrail by her side, that she sleeps if those were to fall. She would have to throw them, which maybe she did in her sleep too. But it is interesting to see that stopped happening after the cleanse. I do think that whatever was in there may have been doing that to mess with her in some way or to get to her, try to get attention. I did research on my apartment over in Ambrose. When I looked up the house history, I couldn't find anything on anyone who died there. I did find out it was built in 1914, but it's almost 110 years old and is seated right next to a funeral home. There's actually 2 parking lots. There's one parking lot at the building, for the funeral home specifically, and another parking lot for tenants. The combination of an old building in a really old, almost run-down city that happens to be next door to a funeral home just gives it a more creepy vibe and makes it seem like it could be more of a hotspot for paranormal things. I think it was something malevolent. I don't think it was a ghost at all. I don't think I've ever heard of or read anything about a ghost appearing, that solid black of a mass. I have heard that usually demonic entities will appear as shadows. That dark, and I have seen ghosts before too, in the past. I've been able to make that mental comparison. When I saw it, it was something evil or demonic trying to attach itself to my daughter, who had been going through the trauma that she had been going through in the past year. When I talked to my mom about it, she asked if her mom or I watch any scary movies while she's in bed. Or maybe she hears stuff I told her no. I would never watch anything like that when my daughter's around. My mom is a spiritual person. She's almost Wiccan, but she practices more the light side of it, healing. Cleansing, she does talk to spirits, mainly my grandfather, her dad, that died a few years ago, when I told her about the cleanse that we were going to do to get rid of the spirit attacking my daughter and me. She brought out divination rods while I was on the phone with her. They're dowsing rods. People have used them to also talk to spirits. The concept that if you let go of the rods, the spirits will manipulate them and move them to kind of make signs. She brought out divination rods, started talking to my grandfather through them. Every time I started talking, she had me on speakerphone. The rods would point to me. I asked if my grandfather had seen her before, in their old house when we used to visit after he died. They said yes. My mom asked if my grandfather would offer some kind of comfort or help protect my daughter and me to drive this bad spirit out. The rods were again pointing to yes. It did kind of bring a comfort and kind of relieve some of my anxiety. Just knowing that, even though I was going to my apartment to cast out something evil, potentially demonic that I had helped to, on the other side in the form of my grandfather wanting to still watch over me and his great-granddaughter. It all stopped kind of suddenly and abruptly, like after the cleanse. She hasn't said that she's seen anything or had any dreams like that since. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. See you soon. See you soon. See 34. Real life nightmare. Life inside a haunted house. My name is Ariel. I grew up in a haunted house for 14 years in Richmond, British Columbia, Canada. I moved into the house in 2005. I was 7 years old. From the very beginning, this eerie feeling. I felt like somebody was watching me. Like there was always something waiting around the corner. Every time I walked into another room, I was scared somebody was going to be there. Something was going to be there. My parents, they always chalked it up to, oh, we're just living in a bigger house now. You're just getting used to it. I don't know, I always felt something was weird. I would start seeing shadows or figures. Oftentimes when I was in my room, I could see a shadow of feet underneath my bedroom door. It would just all of a sudden walk away. It wouldn't vanish, I would see it walk away. I would go and open my door, thinking that my parents were there or something. There's nobody there. Sometimes I would even hear creaking outside my door, like footsteps. A lot of nights there would be this really tall, looming shadow in the corner of my room. I would wake up in the middle of the night and see this super tall shadow that stretched from the floor all the way to my ceiling. Sometimes it was in one corner, and sometimes it was in another. It was in the shape of a tall, lanky man. I would look at it in the middle of the night, just trying to not see it, just trying to convince myself it's not there. There's nothing there. I was often paralyzed. I couldn't move. I'd hid under my blankets and hoped that I could go to sleep. Some nights it was there. It really haunted me. I would also hear footsteps. Most nights, I would hear them walking away from my door in my room. Too, sometimes they would wake me up. I'd be in my bed asleep, and I would hear a shuffling noise with creaking along my floor, as if somebody was standing right next to me. I didn't want to turn around, look and see what or who was there because of the footsteps. I couldn't be in my room alone in the silence at night. In order to sleep, I would have to turn the radio on or some sort of music on. I needed to just drown out any noises that were happening during the night, along with the footsteps and the shadows. The mirrors in my house, I would see figures in mirrors. They would dip behind walls. One time, I was standing in my front entryway. We had a mirror there. Behind me would be our dining room. You could see part of it, and then the rest was behind a wall. I was putting my shoes on, and then I stood up. I was facing the mirror, and the mirror was showing the dining room behind me. I saw a girl. She was young, probably around 12 or 13, but she had raggedy, messy, matted hair and this ripped white dress. It was all dirty. I saw her walk into my dining room. It was so vivid, I thought to myself, oh my God, who's in my house right now? I remember just rushing into my dining room to be like, hello. There was nobody there. I went to go speak to my parents and I said, hey, who's this girl in the house? Did you invite somebody in it? Does she need help? Or what's going on? They just had no idea what I was talking about. I told them I was in the entryway. I saw her in the mirror. She walked into the dining room. My dad is the biggest horror fan in the whole entire world. He just thought, oh my God, that's really cool. You actually saw her. That's so cool. He was just fascinated. Meanwhile, I'm just terrified. For the entire time that I lived at that house, my best friend at the time refused to sleep over unless I covered all of the mirrors in my room with towels or blankets. Every time she came over, she kept seeing figures and shadows in them that weren't there, that creeped me out even more. It validated me, but I thought, okay, at least maybe I'm not crazy. I am actually seeing these things. But at the same time, I was like, well, my friend gets to go home and I have to live here. I remember all of my friends telling me when they would come over, they felt uneasy, unwelcome in my house. As soon as they stepped into my house, they felt like they shouldn't be there, like they weren't allowed to be there. They just shouldn't, which was also disheartening to hear. I used to suffer from insomnia as a child. I had nightmares in that house, a recurring one that I would have. It was from the point of view of an intruder. in my house, almost as if they were giving one of those realtor tours on camera, but 1,000 times more ominous. They would just slowly glide through my house. I'd do a circle in my living room, and then go down the hallway. Very slow, it always took place at night. There was never any noise or sound associated with it. It was just vision. It would always end up outside my bedroom door. It would open my bedroom door, but I would never go in. The worst part of those nightmares in particular was I knew that I was dreaming. I was awake in the dream, but I knew that I was dreaming, and I physically could not wake up. I would always try to will myself wake up, and I physically could not. I felt stuck. I remember thinking, I'm never going to wake up again. The nightmares, they were so common. I had to hang 3 or 4 dream catchers in my room. I don't really know if they worked, but it made me feel a little bit better at least. I knew I'm going to have a nightmare tonight. I don't know what it's going to be. It's either going to be about a natural disaster where my whole family dies, or it's going to be somebody intruding in my house, and it was just always so creepy and terrifying. I would watch doors open and close by themselves, or I would hear them in the house. Worst of all was my bedroom closet door. My closet door was on an old rusty hinge, and the track was also old. It could wake me up. Many nights I would be having a nightmare. When I would wake up from the nightmare, I would sit up and see that my closet door was open. Sometimes it would be wide open. Sometimes it would just be a crack. One night, I woke up from one of those horrible point of view intruder nightmares, where the person had opened my bedroom door. And I remember waking up. My bedroom door was open. I looked at my closet door. It was also open. I ran to my parents' room. I woke them up and I said, "Why did you come in my room? Did you open my door, my closet door? What is going on? This isn't funny." I was just terrified, crying, hyperventilating, and eventually they calmed me down, and my mom ended up coming to sleep in my bed with me so that I could actually sleep. It's one of those experiences. I remember it to this day. I remember the exact feeling I had. A pit in your stomach again. Something is around the corner. Something is waiting for me. It felt so ominous and evil. It didn't feel like it had good intentions. The rest of Ariel's story continues right after this. Stay with us. None of my other family members experienced it. To the level that I did, there were a couple times where we all saw doors violently swing open. But nobody was as terrified as I was. Nobody else was having these dreams. Nobody else's doors were swinging open. I felt targeted. I remember the worst. Absolute worst incident, though, that still haunts me. I was 10 or 11. I was often homesick from school because I was barely sleeping. My parents had just left for work 5 minutes earlier, and my brother was already gone on his way to school whenever everybody left the house. I immediately would go downstairs just to be in the family rooms, so I could be close to an exit door if I got too scared. I came downstairs into this hallway between the kitchen and the living room. I remember seeing my cats in the hallway. I bent down to say goodbye. Morning, give them some pets. As I bent down, I heard a closet door open from upstairs. It wasn't mine because it wasn't creaky. I looked back at my cats. Both of their ears were completely folded back. They were very upset they had both snapped their heads to look straight upstairs, where the noise came from. Then I heard heavy footsteps thumping on the carpet, coming down the hallway towards the top of the staircase, along with these thumping footsteps that sounded as if someone was wearing heavy. Work boots was this horrible, sinking, all-encompassing feeling that locked me in place. I could not move. I felt paralyzed, like in my intruder dreams where I couldn't wake up. Then I hear the footsteps start thumping, one by one down the stairs. I am directly to the left of the staircase. They were halfway down the stairs. I snapped out of it, and my only thought was, I need to run. I sprinted to my neighbor's house. I was in my pajamas. I told my neighbors someone just broke in my house. They're in my house right now. She offered to call the cops, and for some reason I was like, no. I want to call my parents, but I called my dad. He pulled like a U-turn on the highway, sped all the way back. He was only 5 minutes away. Anyways, thankfully, him and my mom get home, and they rush into the house, and they start calling out for anyone in the house to come out, that they're going to call the cops, that they're on the way. I refused to go into the house. It was a good hour before my parents had convinced me to come back in, because there was nobody in the house. They checked every single closet everywhere. Nobody's there. It's empty. I finally went back in. I told my dad again. I heard a closet door open. They came out of a closet upstairs, and he's checked all the closet. There's nobody in there. He took me upstairs to open and shut the closets and identify which one. I heard as soon as he opened my brother's closet. I was like, that's the one. It's my brother's closet, he was like. That's weird. There's no way this could have opened. It was shut when he came upstairs. I refused to be alone in the house for 6 months afterwards. We knew, okay, nobody actually broke into the house. My parents were trying to explain it away. I started thinking when my parents got into the house. It was all locked except for the front door. From the inside, if there was an intruder, they couldn't have gotten out from any other door. If they had come out, the front door took like a special force to close, because they had put some weather stripping on it, or something. Nobody, not even close family friends, were able to close it. Only me and my family knew. It takes practice closing it. That's when I started getting even more scared, because I thought, okay, I am not crazy. I was not dreaming. Something happened. I don't know what it was, but what if I hadn't snapped out of it? And I just sat there and waited for whatever it was to get down the stairs and reach me. And it's still to this day. Every time I talk about it, I'm looking over my shoulder, and I still get these horrible chills. Thankfully, that only happened once, and I lived there for 10 or 11 more years before I moved out. But that definitely was not the end of the incidents. Shadows, seeing things in mirrors, lights turning on and off that continued up until I moved out in the middle of the night. I used to hear somebody messing with the beads outside of my door, and I would hear clicking on my door. Some nights I would open my door. Nobody was there. Cats were not there. They were fast asleep on my parents' bed. I would be in my room upstairs. I would hear my mom call my name, run downstairs and be like, yeah. What do you want? She always said. I didn't call for you. What are you doing down here? My dad did experience a lot of things in that house. He didn't admit it to me until a couple of years before I moved out. He saw figures and shadows flitting. From one room to another, he heard my name being called, sometimes by my brother, sometimes by my mom. He also had lights turn on and off. in a lot of rooms that he was in. He actually had a piece of paper thrown at him. It was whipped from the coffee table into his face. The only thing my mom actually ever experienced was she would have things go missing. They would miraculously show up somewhere else. One time her wallet went missing. It was in her purse, obviously. My dad was looking for it all day. So was my mom. I was looking for it too. I went downstairs. Her purse was in the center of the living room. Her wallet was sitting right next to. It went to hold my mom, and I was like, "Your wallet's right here. What are you talking about?" She was white in the face. She was like, "Okay, I'm going insane." I thought that they were playing a trick on me. One time, her credit card went missing. She found it just balanced on top of her wallet. Later on in the day, none of us took it, but she would just find stuff balanced on top of her stuff, or in just a very convenient location. They tried to look up the house history, and nothing was found. There were no documented deaths in the house in Canada. It's not legally required for realtors to disclose, or even document if deaths occurred in a house. The only places that keep those records are the police department, and again, that information you can't really get unless you're related to whoever passed away. We never found anything. But I do remember when my parents were getting the keys for the place. The previous owners were there. We were just having a chat with them and saying, "Thank you, we're gonna love this house and everything." My dad, he was offering his condolences because the guy who lived there, his wife had passed away fairly recently. A year prior, my dad asked him "Oh, I'm so sorry about that. It's really tough. I hope that she was comfortable where she was." The previous owner of the house was quite cagey about where she was when she passed away. He just said, "Yep, she was comfortable." He had mentioned she hated hospitals. So we were like, was she in the house? It's possible that she passed away in the house. I know a lot of people pass away at home. It's just what happens. But I just know the house was built in 1970. It wasn't ridiculously old or anything. Whatever it was just didn't have good intentions because of how it made me feel. You might hear a door open or a door close or a light flicker, and you might think, "Oh, maybe that's just my family member visiting me." But for me, it was the feeling of dread. You can share your own story and get in touch with me over at True Scary Story.com. And up next, check out our other shows from Scary FM. A link to them in the description of the episode. Ad-free versions are available in our Scary Plus membership, which is free for 2 weeks and then $4.99 a month after that. You can cancel anytime. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. See you soon. See you. Please listen to the story. A Townhouse Terror. The Night I Faced the Unseen. My story takes place in Alberta, Canada. I was raised here, but I was born in Mexico. And my parents moved us up here when I was 6 years old. In Mexico, we grew up hearing lots of stories from relatives and my own parents about paranormal activity. They had experienced themselves, or weird phenomena that they just couldn't explain. It wasn't odd for me to acknowledge and accept that there were things beyond my understanding within that realm. When I was 21, I was living with some roommates in an old townhouse. My roommates and I rarely got to see each other. All at the same time, we worked very different schedules. We would usually see each other on the way in or out of the house. The house itself was probably built in the 70s or 80s. It was quite old. You could hear creaking all the time. If anyone walked up and down the stairs, you could hear it very clearly. Even walking into the kitchen you could hear. I was just getting ready for bed. I went upstairs to my room. They didn't have curtains for my window. I would just close the blinds at nighttime, and I would still get a lot of light, from street lights or even the moonlight. I had placed my bed right underneath the window. It was just the darkest spot in the room, where I slept comfortably. On this night, I was really struggling to fall asleep when I heard the front door of the house open. I heard steps come up. Then my door rattled. I'm thinking, oh, one of my silly roommates has come home drunk and thinks that this is their room. I lived with two guys, and they were very protective of me. I was like their little sister. The rattling on the doorknob stopped, and I heard the footsteps go back downstairs and out the door. I just didn't really think anything else of it and kept trying to fall asleep. 10 minutes later, someone is behind me. That pressure you feel on a bed or on the mattress when someone is leaning in. I had that feeling behind me. My thought was, oh, one of my roommates is checking up on me. And as I'm waking up, a bit more out of that weird daze you're in, right before you fall asleep, I realized my bedroom door is locked. I'm sleeping on my side. My back is towards the wall where the window is. I opened my eyes. I knew something was wrong. I shouldn't be able to feel anything behind me. When I opened my eyes, the light in the room started to disappear, as if someone was pulling a curtain over my window. This light was just disappearing. From the corner of my eye, I could see something at the end of my bed. I just grabbed whatever courage I had in that moment. I looked over at the edge of my bed was a large, dark figure. I could see the silhouette, but it couldn't quite make out if it was a person. Just a dark figure. The only distinct feature was red glowing eyes. I couldn't move. I just laid there staring at this thing in front of me. It launched right at me. It came so close, it was almost right in front of my face, hovering above me. It leaned in just a bit more. Then it growled. A deep growl. I don't even know if I could imitate it. It didn't sound natural. Right after it did that, it started to disappear. It was evaporating before my eyes. When it was fully out of sight, all the light in my room came back in. I instantly sat up and I thought, oh my goodness. What just happened? I thought. You need to call Mom. She'll know what to do. I grabbed my phone. I called my mom. She goes, okay, what you need to do right now is hang up the phone and start praying. For protection, for guidance, just keep praying. Start singing whatever church songs that you remember. But you need to do that right now. Whatever that was might not be in sight, but something could be lingering, and you need to bring some good energy into the room. I said, okay, I will. So hung up immediately. Started praying out loud as much as I could, because my voice was so shaky. I was crying. I started singing. I couldn't get past the one song that I kept singing. I just kept singing it over, and I couldn't think of any other song. My mind went blank afterward. I just was stuck on this one song. A few days later, my roommates and I just happened all to be home at the same time. I said, hey, did anyone come home around 3 the other night and come upstairs and accidentally try and get into my room and left again? They were like, they weren't home at all nights. I wish I could say that I knew what it was, just so I could make sense of it. I don't know if I'll ever really know what it was that I faced that day. the women in my family particularly. Something is always testing us. So maybe this was my moment where evil forces or entities were testing me to see if I would show fear or if I would face it. Like my mom has faced a lot of things. She has seen dark figures, big wolves. My aunt has also seen spirits. My grandma, my cousins, we've all seen or dreamt or felt something, and I'm glad. That was a lesson my mom instilled in us, was you don't show fear. Don't let them see that face of fear. It doesn't matter even if you are scared. You cannot show them fear because that's how they win. Something else did come to mind that I wanted to share, because it's so common for, like, our family to talk about this stuff. We grew up being really close friends to a family that lives on a reserve near us. The husband is a chief, the wife is an elder. They're well respected in their community. They're the ones who taught me how to do blessings on myself with sage, and how to bless my home, and how to protect myself from energies with the teachings of the indigenous, which I profoundly respect. Their teachings mean a lot to me, and learning all that has really made a difference for me, even if you don't really know how to do it. The way they are trying to show you, you still have full power within yourself to cast things away or request that the good energies and the healing spirits, good spirits, bring light into your life. People think that they're completely helpless without these extra instruments, but we have all the power. We're the ones with flesh and bone. Like, these are just spirits and entities trying to get their way with us, however they can. But we're the ones with the real control. I've embraced that part of my life. And I have no problem with calling myself a bruja. In my own way, I am. My grandma and great-grandmother on my father's side considered themselves white witches. My great-grandma was on her deathbed. She was so scared she kept saying, "They're coming for me. I don't want to die. They're coming for me." She asked the grandkids to go get my dad. My dad was the only one who was religious. She said, "Go get Alejandro. I need him to come give me a blessing, because I'm so scared." She hated religion, but she was so scared on her deathbed that she called for my dad to come bless her. She says she's a white witch, but who knows what she dabbled in. You shouldn't be that scared when you're dying. She was doing other stuff for sure. Sometimes we go into this gray area, but convince ourselves that we're still in the white. I remember my dad telling us that his grandma would practice. White magic people would come for her for like healings, love spells and stuff. Love spells is not white magic. You're interfering with people's will. That's not white. That's not pure. Life is a delicate balance, and when you start messing with certain things, go out of balance. And I feel like that's when things go sideways, and people end up with illnesses or money troubles, and it's not even always by their own hand. Someone they have like Rugeria put on them. So there's just an imbalance in energy, and that's when things go wrong. White witches, those with knowledge and power to help others with supernatural means, may not always be who they say they are. Do you have any experiences with brujos? Brujas or white witches? Black magic. How'd it go? Tell me about it. You can find my contact info and ways to join our community by using the links in the description of this episode. And if you want to listen without ads while supporting the show, you can try out Scary Plus if you have a story that you want to share with all of us. visit truescarystory.com. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. Please listen to the story, A Final Message from Beyond. I'm Kalen. I host Heart Starts Pounding, a podcast of horrors, hauntings, and mysteries. It's a show for those with dark curiosities. We cover lots of paranormal, spooky dark history, and true crime stories. And part of the reason why I'm really interested in those kinds of stories is because of an experience I had growing up, when I think I had a haunted piano in my house. Back in the day, my dad bought a piano from an estate sale. There was a man who passed away, and he had this upright piano from the 70s or 80s maybe. I don't know how old it was. So my dad, who was a piano player himself, bought it and brought it to our house. We're like, oh my God, yay. I was probably like 5 years old at the time. So I started taking piano lessons, and I would sit and I would play this piano. And there was always kind of like a weird vibe to it. Right when you walk in the front door, it was to the left, and to the right was the stairs. And I remember it was around the time we got the piano that I would start, like running up the stairs to get to my room. Like I couldn't ever at night walk by this room. I always had to run, because I would always get really spooked. It just had a weird vibe, but during the day it felt okay. So I would play the piano and practice. One day my dad and I are walking up the stairs, and we get to the point where, as you're walking up the stairs, eventually you can't see the piano anymore, because you get to like the second story, and just as my head clears the second story, and I can't see the piano anymore, my dad's in front of me. We hear the piano play. It's like something jumped on the piano, and immediately my dad's like, "Get the cat." We think it's maybe the cat jumped on the piano. I run downstairs. Cat's nowhere to be found. I'm like, "Dad, I don't think the cat's down here." And we go upstairs, and the cat is sleeping on my dad's bed. And we both looked at each other, and both of us were like, "Whoa." And from that moment on, we kind of started joking that the piano was haunted. Fast forward about a year from then, I'm getting a little bit better at playing the piano. I can sit down and play a song by myself. So I'm sitting, and I'm playing the piano. And as I'm playing, I start getting this weird feeling. It's like the feeling that something's watching me. And I think, sometimes my dad would come in and watch me play. Whatever. And I'm thinking that my dad is behind me. So I'm starting to show off a little bit. I'm playing more and more. And I look down at my left hand, because I'm about to play a little bit with my left hand. And at the bottom of the piano, the lower register, the 3 lowest notes, all pressed down together, as if a hand was on the piano pressing them. But nothing else was touching the piano. Just the 3 lowest notes all pressed down together. They make the noise, and then they come up, and I bolted out of the room. It was the strangest thing I'd ever seen in my life. It felt like someone was standing behind me. And then I watched the piano play by itself. So I run out, and my dad's like, "What's going on? What happened?" And I'm like, "The piano played itself. It played by itself. I don't know what's going on." And it was another moment of us just being like, "Oh, that's very spooky that something's going on." Over the years, some weird stuff like that would happen. A note would play by itself. I would be upstairs. I would hear the piano kind of make a noise. And not that. It was like a funny joke that the piano was haunted. But we knew when it played by itself. We were all like, "That's the haunted piano." And we'd all get a chill. Like it always stayed scary to us. But we tried to cope with it by laughing about it. The weirdest thing that happened was, when I was 14 years old, my grandmother passed away. She was really old. It was like very expected. And it was June when she died. So it was summertime, school had just ended. It was maybe the day after she died that I was home, playing the piano. And I was thinking to myself and playing the piano. And next to us, we had this box of sheet music. And we always cycle through the sheet music every year. So Christmas music comes out during Christmas. But on off season, it's at the bottom of the box. It's so far away from me to be able to pick up, which is important to the story. But I'm playing the piano, and all of a sudden behind me as I'm playing, and I'm thinking about my grandma, and I'm really sad. I start hearing something kind of whooshing through the air behind me, as if a piece of paper is kind of gently falling behind me, and then I hear paper kind of grazed the wood floor behind me. And I turn around and there's a piece of sheet music that looks like it's been ripped out of a book. And that is a huge faux pas in my house. You do not rip sheet music out of a book. You open the book and you fold it. Or you find something to hold the pages open. But every book has to remain intact. So I turn around and I'm none of us ripped a piece of sheet music out of a book. And it was just one page by itself. And I pick it up and it's Away in a Manger, the Christmas song. And I just get this really weird feeling why is one piece of sheet music, which is way packed away at this point of the year, ripped out of a book this? It just did not feel like us. But I end it something came over me that was you need to play this song right now. This sheet music just came out of nowhere. So I put it on the piano and I start playing it, and I hear my dad running through the house, barreling towards the room I'm in. And he has tears in his eyes and he's "Why are you playing Away in a Manger?" And I was it's gonna sound crazy. But this piece of sheet music just appeared from nowhere, and I just felt I had to play it. And he was growing up, that was your grandmother's favorite Christmas song. And both of us just started crying. It was we didn't even have to say it. But in that moment, we were she wanted me to play that song one more time. And I don't know if the piano was some sort of conduit, a portal of some sort. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not a scientist, I don't know if it just had some sort of connection where she was able to make that last request through the piano, specifically. But after that, nothing weird ever happened with the piano again. That was the last thing. So, we have Kaylin here with us from Heart Starts Pounding. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I do have a few questions about it. Do you know where the piano came from and all of that? I don't know exactly who it was or the house. I just know, and I asked my dad later on, exactly where he got it from and all. He knows is that a guy passed away, had the piano, and he went and bought it for cheap. And you always hear something about the haunted piano, in some classic stories, but never heard one, on the show. I know, yeah. It is kind of a haunted house kind of trope. But no, it really was for us a very real thing. Wow. We got rid of that piano a few years later, and then upgraded to a nicer one. And there's been nothing weird with it. 'Cause it was a new piano. It's just that one. When all this stuff was happening, did you ever talk with anybody else in the house about it? Just my dad. I mean, my dad was the only other person that played the piano, so we were really the only two interacting with it. I have a sibling who's also in the house and was like, always thought that the house was haunted in some way. Like always felt, and same thing. Like even to this day runs past that room, just from growing up. Like always having that weird feeling. But it was mainly just my dad and I that were like, something's going on, we don't know what it is, but something's going on. Wow. So like it was normal for you then to like, oh, this thing is haunted, I would say? Yeah, normal in a way that was still scary though. Like we still were freaked out by it being haunted. It was like one of those unspoken things though, that both of us were like, the piano's haunted. No one for a second was like, yeah. But I don't know if ghosts are real. Maybe something else is going on. Both of us were just like, no, it's haunted. That's bizarre. Yeah, it was very bizarre. Oh man, very bizarre. Thank you, Kaylin. And everyone make sure to check out. Heart starts pounding. Did you buy secondhand items? And have you suspected any of them to be haunted? Let me know, remember, that you can get ad-free episodes and support what we're doing by trying out Scary Plus. And if you have a story, go to truescarystory.com. I'll link to everything in the description of this episode. If you're following the show, I'll talk to you next week. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon, everyone. See you soon. Please listen to the story, Unwelcome Visitor. Don't listen to this one alone. What she thought was her uncle's spirit returning turned into a terrifying encounter that she will never forget. My name is Edwin, and here is Angie's true scary story. My name is Angelica. I live in Merida, California. This happened in Temecula, California. More Winchester. Past Lake Skinner, its very secluded area hills, cows, fences, and your closest neighbor is about a mile away. At night, it was pretty scary. The only lights you can see were the houses that you can see through the hills. Around this time, my parents had divorced, and we lived in a home in Monrovia Valley. In that home, I experienced a lot of dark energy. During their divorce, it was very ugly. I have to say it was like a spiritual battle going on. We ended up moving to my aunt and uncle's home. In Winchester, they graciously opened up their home to us because my mother had nowhere to go at this time. My uncle and my aunt, they were working and they had their own business. They were pretty well off. They had a beautiful property. It was a ranch, we call it El Rancho. It was a one-story flat, and with 3 houses in the back. The only people who would come were those who lived there. Around 1995, I was 13 or 14 years old. My uncle passed away. It was very unexpected. He had gotten into a car accident. It was pretty tragic. He actually ended up on the news. We didn't know what to make of this, or how to move past this. He was a pretty big part of our family. He had such a huge personality. He was a father figure to a lot of people. Especially me during that time, it was very hard. 2 months later, or still getting over his passing. This happened early in the morning. I was sleeping. I heard 3 knocks. It was like somebody knocking on the door. It wasn't fast, it was like a normal knock. The first one was like knock. The second round got a little bit louder. Third round got a little bit louder. I was awoken up by the second 3 knocks. I was just laying in bed. I was looking around. I knew that it was very early. I didn't hear birds chirping. I didn't hear the dogs barking. Again, I hear 3 loud knocks. I'm looking around and I'm scared. I'm just thinking to myself, am I the only one who's awake? Am I the only one who's hearing this? I turned to my cousin who's laying next to me. We shared a room. I go to wake up my cousin. I push her. She does not wake up. I hear 3 loud bangs again. The door that these bangs are happening on. They're on a security gate. This door is really sensitive. You can hear a tap, or if you close it, it vibrates throughout the whole house. My cousin is not waking up. I'm just thinking to myself, what is going on this early in the morning? It's a house full of people. I slowly walk out. I peek my head out into the hallway, and I look. I'm quiet. I didn't say anything. I'm just looking to see if anybody else is hearing it. In this property, when you walk out into the hallway, I have turned left. You immediately come to the kitchen on your left, and then to the right is the door. In the kitchen, there is a bar countertop with 3 bar stools, and the very first one. And the end was my uncle's favorite chair. I'm walking slowly throughout the house. I walk over to his favorite chair, and I sit there. During this time while I was walking, I didn't hear any more banging or knocking. I was like, okay, I'll just sit here and wait. I don't know what that was about, but I'm the only one awake so far. I sit down and I look around, confused, but also waiting for something. Then again, I heard 3 loud bangs, and this time they were so loud it was like gunshots. I jumped out of the chair. I was terrified. I ran over to the door. I opened it, and I opened the security gate. There was nobody there. My uncle's favorite dog was outside. He was just walking towards me. And then he turned his head. He must have seen something. I'm guessing it was my uncle. He jumped up and he was extremely happy to see somebody. That wasn't there. I had no idea. Nobody that I can see was there. He was jumping up and down, wagging his tail. And this is a very lazy dog, he does. Doesn't really give attention. Unless it's somebody very specific. I was just very focused on that. It was hard for me to process everything that was going on. My uncle, who was staying with us, ended up opening the window after this had transpired. And he goes, "Do you see that?" I go, "Yeah, I see that." He's just dumbfounded. He's just looking at me with his mouth open. I just stand there finally. Everyone slowly starts to wake up. My aunt comes out. What was that? Or what's going on, my cousin, who previously I tried shaking awake. She comes over to the kitchen. Everyone has this like, what's going on? Look on their face. They're asking questions, and I said, "You guys didn't hear those 3 loud knocks." My tia, who knows far more about spirituality and what certain things mean than I do. She says, "Wait, how many knocks?" I said, 3 knocks. She just stood there and she goes, "Why did you open the door? Why didn't you come and ask me?" And I was just, I don't know. I was so confused, and I was like, did I do something bad? My tia, she just stayed quiet. She wasn't mad at me. She was mad at what was going on. She stood quiet. My cousins looked at me and they're like, "You don't know what that means?" And I go, "No, I don't. I personally think that I was targeted. Everyone else was put to sleep." She had a maid who's still alive. By the way, who practices Santeria. She would do these little rituals. I was there to witness them, to see them. So after this event transpired that night, she was called by my aunt to come back because she was visiting family, either in Mexico or in Los Angeles. She explained to her what happened and what's going on. "You need to come. You need to cleanse the home. You need to do something because I know something's off." My aunt was like, I knew something was going to happen because she was gone. I don't know the background and what was going on, But I knew that they would do veneration spells, or ask Mythia's maid to conjure in spirits, or get consultations through people that they trusted in the spirit world. Now I know some people, or those that are listening, may feel like that's not possible, but it truly is. There are people out there who can invite spirits into them. She was that person. She was the one that was cleaning, and she was organizing. And then all of a sudden, she would faint. And then it would be somebody completely different. She was just only Spanish speaking, and she would start talking perfect English, like in a deep voice, like a man's voice. I would just yell, "Tia Blanquita fainted again." She knew exactly what that meant, though I was a little scared of her. My aunt and uncle spoke to her in Spanish. Whenever she would say something, my cousins would have to translate. It was in perfect English. That really threw me off. I was scared. That was the very first time I had ever seen anything like that. I had never experienced seeing any sort of ability to that degree before. Like I've heard of maybe a witch or something and stuff like that for Halloween. But I just never understood the gravity or the level of abilities that some people may have. I'm here at the house and I'm scared because I have no idea what's going to happen. All I know is that I would hear cabinets open and close. My cousins were afraid to go, use the restroom by themselves. The tension in the air and what everyone was feeling was just scared. My aunt was upset, but she told me, "You might have let in a demon." She goes, "You've never heard about not opening doors, especially when doors are being knocked. And there's nobody there, somebody's knocking. And of course, we're in the middle of nowhere." I thought it was maybe family or something. The maid comes back and she walks in the door, and it reminds me of that scene from Poltergeist where the psychic comes through the door. She just looks around, and she has a very serious look on her face. She asks my aunt what she's been experiencing. And just to go back a little bit, it took her like 5 days to get back from where she was at, because she was visiting family. So she wanted to spend her time. How do we fix what's happened? Because I don't want to live in fear anymore. She goes, "I can't even go into my bedroom because I feel like somebody's watching me. Couldn't take a shower alone. I had to ask my cousin to come to the restroom with me, to sit down, because I was so scared." Everyone had that same feeling. So the maid she has, I guess one of her spirits that she communicates, that comes through her to my aunt, ends up coming to her like an hour within who she's at in the house, from when I was told she's a nun. She's a nun who had passed away, maybe in a different century. She basically says, somebody sent something to you. I guess my aunt and uncle had a lot of people that were jealous of them, of their success, that also practiced or dabbled in maybe some black magic. They waited for whatever low vibrational or dark entity to be sent to her home. Of course, me being the vulnerable one, I was the one who opened the door. And I don't live with guilt. It was just more of not knowing. Maybe a little bit of ignorance. No one ever talks about that. No one ever told me. Later on that night, the maid, she's cleaning, she's working, and she faints. It's my uncle. He starts speaking through her. You have to know that. Whenever a spirit enters someone's body, that person takes on their mannerisms. That person takes on their whole personality. That's who they are, how they walk, how they speak. Even her face changed. Everyone had their mouth covered and was crying. He said he didn't want to die. He came back, but he brought something with him. if you can travel or if you can maybe hitchhike, or if spirits make deals. And I don't know, I always try to rationalize, thinking, why would he do this? Or is there something that might have followed him? Then again, knowing that somebody else sent it, that ended up making sense. The maid was walking around just like him, opened the fridge, started drinking the way that he drank. My uncle, he was a drinker. He enjoyed his alcohol. He started to drink. Or she started to drink. The maid started to talk to my aunt. He was just saying how sorry he was. And in mid-sentence, that's when she fainted. Once the maid ends up fainting, she's exhausted. She cannot do anything. She needs to rest because it's so much energy that's being used. So she rests. The next day, she performs this ritual with a huge pan on the floor. She puts all these herbs in the middle. I had no idea what was going on. I just know that I was a part of it. It was just so interesting to see her gather up all these ingredients, and they were just flowers and herbs and different types of roses. I'm thinking to myself, oh, okay. I had a million questions. I'm like, am I going to get hurt or what's going to happen? Everybody else pretty much knew. What she was doing was for the betterment. Me being newer and not being exposed to this at all. I was a little scared, but my cousin talked me down. This is so we can help move him out. Help move him on where he needs to go. I said, okay, if that's what it's for, I'm all in. She puts balm or incense into the pan, and there's a good smoke going. She starts singing these prayers, these words, and she's praying. Each of us had to walk over the pan, but in a cross. We walk up, walk back, and then go to the other side. So then it was like, you would make the sign of the cross. Each of us had to do that. After that was done, she had to go through each room, everywhere in the house, and do her thing. I didn't follow her, even though I wanted to, because I was so interested in what she was doing. I just stood back. After that, she says, okay, give it time. Probably within an hour, the house felt so beautiful. Everything was lifted. Everything felt back to normal. Even though he had passed away, it didn't feel like anybody was there staring at me. The house didn't feel heavy anymore. I wasn't living in fear. We didn't hear things throughout the house. I was happy in that sense. But I was just sad because I let whatever was in. Even now, I have the conversation with my kids. If you ever hear knocks, if you ever hear anything at the door, you always look. You just don't ever automatically open the door. My kids always ask me why, because sometimes there's things out there that are not good. That will come to your door and knock. Sometimes you won't see anybody. You might hear a voice, because that's happened before to my aunt. She's told me that something comes knocking on her door, and she's heard a voice, and there's nobody there. I just tell them always look, especially knocks in 3. Just being involved in my aunt's home and getting to know my aunt's maid, I ended up asking her questions. And since I don't know Spanish really well, I asked my cousin to ask her. She ended up telling me that when she lived in her country, she was a teenager, she was told that she's a schizophrenic because she would hear voices. She would see things. People just thought that she had either schizophrenia or she was undergoing psychosis. So she was cast out of her family for a while because she was experiencing all these things that she had no idea what was going on. One day she just couldn't take it. She ran away from home. She ended up on the streets of Mexico. She was just laying on the floor covering her ears. And she was saying, "No, Maz, I can't take this anymore." She said, a woman came up to her, showed her hand, and she said, "You're not crazy. I see it in you. You have the gift to Tatiana's Eldon." When she told me that, I got immediate chills. I was like, wow, she just saw you and saw that in you. She goes, yeah. She took me under her wing. And this was a lady that she's never met before. She just explained to her, and she sat her down. She goes, "I'm going to teach you how to use your gifts, or else. You're going to live your life feeling like you're crazy. You're most likely going to end up ending yourself because you don't know how to wield it into your favor." I was told by the maids that I had certain abilities. I feel like I might be clairvoyant or clairaudient. A lot of information comes through me, through dreams or through knowing. I've carried that with me. I hear those same thoughts in my mind, and it's almost like I'm not thinking them. If you want to share your story with us, head on over to truescarystory.com and fill out the form. We'll get in touch to see if we can record it. To support our show and get episodes without ads, check out Scary Plus over on scaryplus.com. It's free for 2 weeks and then 4. $99 a month. You can cancel anytime. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. 1. Please listen to the story, Demon in the Barn, while exploring an abandoned farmhouse in rural California. 2 friends came face to face with something dark, an encounter so chilling that it still haunts them. Decades later, my name is Edwin, and here is Dory's true scary story. I grew up on my grandparents' and great-grandparents' property in the Central Valley of California. In the 1800s, my family settled there. I'm not sure how they got the land. I think they got it from the Native American Indian tribe. That was in the area. I think it was the Miwoks. My great-grandparents built a big, huge custom home on the property. Had peach orchards, then walnut orchards, almond orchards. Then my grandparents built a big ranch house on that property as well. When I was a teenager, we moved onto the property, onto a separate house next to my grandparents' house. So we spent a lot of time outside. I had horses and whatnot. Our property was 40 acres, and we were up on a bluff. The bluff overlooked the top of walnut orchards. So we would go down, especially in the summertime. We'd either ride the horses or walk, and we'd take this one road that went straight down, of almost a mile, and our property ended at the river, to a day where this story comes into play. This summer, my friend and I, we were going to walk down there just killing time. We usually went to the east. This time I said, let's go to the west. Because last week, when I was with another friend riding our horses, I rode past this old house that was sitting back off the river, off the road. You could tell from the road far away it's abandoned. I said, let's go check it out, see if there's anything cool there. So we start walking down there. It's a small little white wooden, 1-bedroom little square house. Immediately behind it is a very large wooden barn. It was clear that this house was probably built like in the 20s turn of the century. It's an old dilapidated house. It's in the middle of nowhere. There's just, for as far as you can see in any direction, it's just orchards. So as we were approaching it, we were being kind of quiet because we didn't know if there were. Like any other random people out there, we were just 2 girls. So we wanted to be careful that we weren't going to bump into some scary dudes down there. So we kind of did a big circle around the barn in this house to make sure nobody was there. And we were quiet as we were doing it. This barn is massive, huge barn, the size of a 2-story building. but there was no second story in it. It was just really high rafters. The doors to the barn were slid open. There was probably maybe a 5 or 6 feet space between the back wall of where the house was and the back wall of the barn, and the barn was totally intact. There was nothing wrong with it. It was that thing was solid. The house, on the other hand, half of the walls, one half of the house. There were no walls left. Trees had crashed into it. Branches, the leaves were everywhere. The front part of it was intact. But the back wall of the house and the back, right side of the house, the walls were gone. But you can still see kind of the footing. 3/4 of the wall will still stand. We go around to the back of this barn as we were making our loop around to make sure no one is there. There's an old tractor, completely covered by the weeds and dry grass, 20 feet, 30 feet away from the barn behind us. As we're facing these barn doors, we're looking inside of it. You could tell it's not used anymore. There's cobwebs from ceiling to floor, dust motes floating through the air. It was late in the afternoon, sun shining through. Everything is covered in this real fine layer of dust. It's clear no one uses this barn. On the right-hand side of the barn, there was like a workbench that just had odds and ends of stuff that people just never used anymore. Old tools and cans and bottles, suitcases. Not a whole lot of stuff, but it was. There was nothing really of any value over there. On the left-hand side of the barn was big railroad ties. Those heavy wooden railroad ties. Probably 20 or 30 of them. But it probably took up. Like 15 feet long by maybe 4 feet high. They were just stacked, not very neatly. You could tell they'd been there for years and years. And years, cobwebs all over them, hay all over them, dust, and there were barrel hoops thrown on top of them, and pieces of wire. It used to be maybe a grape vineyard that was in the empty fields that were around us. They also had peach orchards down there, so there was a lot of old orchard equipment, wooden things and metal rings and wire. And then, at the back, left corner, all the way up to, actually, the whole back wall of the barn, was hay bales that had fallen apart and were just piled up there. It was probably 5 feet high, by maybe the width of the house. There must have been tons of bales of hay there, that fallen apart over 10 or 20 years, and it's just laying there covered in dust, covered in cobwebs. So as we walk through, we're kind of breaking through a few cobwebs, and I'm afraid of spiders. So I'm giggling about, I don't want to see any spiders. And we walk around and we're looking. Maybe we'll see some old, cool tool, or some old, cool bottle, or something interesting. Fun old antique. What not to take with us. We walk around in there. We don't see anything of interest. And we walk back out. We go around to the front of the house. On the front porch is a whole bunch of old, abandoned washers and dryers, and from probably the 50s. As we get into the main part of this little square house, we walked into where there used to be a wall, but there was no more wall there. It was only about 2 feet high, like the foundation. And the bottom part of the wall was there. My friend goes in, and as we walk into the house, if we were standing in the dead center of this perfect square, we were both looking at the back wall of this barn, because there's no wall there to the house. The wall of that house was gone. To the left is a kitchen. You can walk into this little tiny kitchen, and then going on that side also is one little bedroom, and I stayed right where I was, in the center of this house. and I was looking at what was probably the living room. And there was no wall there. There was a pile of just junk on the ground. There's also branches, leaves. Everything kind of mixed up in this pile of junk. So my friend goes to the front part. She's looking through the other rooms, and I'm looking into this pile. And as I'm kind of using a stick, and I'm pushing things around to see what's in this pile, I see this staff like a walking stick. It's probably about 4 or 5 feet long, and it is intricately carved. Derek's carving over every inch of it. It's very detailed, ornate carving, and so I'm like poking it with a stick, looking at it, squinting, like, what is that? My friend calls me kind of in a panic, I startle and I go, kind of hustling back to the front part of the house, where she is. A lizard scared her or something. I said, come here, you gotta see what's in this pile. This thing's cool. So, we walk back to where I was standing at this pile, and from where we're standing, we are probably 5 or 6 feet from the back wall of the barn. If you've ever been in an old barn, or like an old wooden fence, you could see kind of through the cracks of the wood, just a little tiny bit. You can see through the cracks of the wood. And so I get to that pile and I'm like, look, there's this stack here. I start poking around in the pile and there's nothing there. It's not there. And she goes, what? What did you see? And I said, there was this stick. And as soon as I started talking about it, there came a sound from inside that barn that was so deafeningly loud. It sounded like somebody had dropped a freight train inside that barn. The ground shook, and it was like whatever was at the back of the barn, where the doors were. It was like a train, or it was louder than a truck. It was whatever it was. It was so loud it was barreling into the barn so fast, so furious you could hear the wood flying. You could hear those barrel rings flying. You could hear the railroad ties flying. You could hear the hay, everything scattering in there. The walls were shaking. The ground was shaking. The air was just reverse. It was so loud, everything just moving in there. And then, whatever it was, hit the back of the wall of that barn, right in front of us, eye level. And you could just hear this guttural growl and breathing on the other side of this wall. And this wasn't a person. This wasn't a car. This was a sound that I can't even describe how incredibly loud this was. We're both frozen, staring at this wall. Through the slats of this wall, we start to kind of inch our way to the right, to kind of walk out away from this house. Staring at the wall as we do, you can tell something's on the other side of the wall. You can see it. Dust is kind of coming through the slats of the wood. You could see eyes through those slats, but you can't make out the shape. You could see something on the other side of the wall. It was dark black. The eyes were like a yellowish, then kind of red. As we started facing the wall, slowly inching our way out of the house, not taking our eyes off of this wall. It's still breathing and following us, and you could hear things moving on the other side of that wall. We come around where there's a clearing, and we take off running. We don't look back. We take off running, and we must have ran 3/4 of a mile before one of us just literally collapses on the ground for running so fast. We look at each other. We look around. Make sure nothing's following. Nothing's following us. We look at each other. What the heck just happened? And we start reliving and recounting what we saw. What we heard when we both first started talking. We couldn't believe what had just happened. Party you wanted to say, this can't be what I thought it was. So as I start explaining what I saw, my friend Jennifer starts finishing my sentences, and I'm doing the same for her. Like, did you see the skin? It looked like it was leather. Did you see his eyes? Yeah. The eyes were red. What was that? We saw. Why was that so loud? What? How was that barn still standing? As we're sitting there, catching our breath, another friend who's like a younger brother to me comes up, because he was going down to the river to go fishing. He's like, "What are you guys doing?" We tell him what happened. He's like, "You guys are full of crap. There's nothing there. You guys are crazy." I'm like, "Dude, I am not kidding you. I have never lied to you. I am not joking." He was like, "All right, then show me." We get up. We start walk back there. I said, "I'll walk back there, but I'm not going in there again. I'm never going back in there." So we walk back over there, take a big wide berth around it, but we go back to where the barn. I said, "I just want to see what." "You go in that barn and you'll see there is. That place is torn to shreds." So we get to the very back, and I'm far away, and I'm looking at the inside side of this barn, and it looks like exactly like it did when we first got there. There's still cobwebs hanging on the ceiling. Everything's in the exact same place. Nothing has been moved. No dust's askew anywhere. It's exactly the same. I tell him, I was like, "Hey, go over there in that house and go look in that pile over there and see if there's a long stick in that." Set him in there like a guinea pig, and he's stupid. So he went in there, and he's like, "There's nothing in here. There's just trash in here. There's old cans and like leaves and trash. And there's nothing in here." "What are you talking about?" I go back, I start doodling. Later that evening, I'm like doodling. Like I can't picture the images that were on that stick, but I've never seen anything like it. Later, as Jennifer and I talk about that years later, and for days after that, the only thing I can say to describe what we saw was a demon. I have a hard time telling the story to people, because no one's going to believe you. But at that time, I didn't watch scary stories. I was raised in a very religious family. We weren't allowed to talk about that stuff, be involved in that stuff. Like it was not part of my world, part of just my experience. It wasn't something I was looking for, wasn't anything I was expecting. But I know what I saw, and it was from that point on that it really made me wonder what else is out there, because I can't explain what I heard and what I saw. Since that time, as an adult now, it has made me interested in what else is out there. There's something else that goes on in our world. That's more than just, flesh and bone. There's something else out there. So I've been interested in reading and studying, trying to figure out, but a little bit afraid of finding out exactly what I saw since that day. There are very few things that actually scare me. Almost everything else is tangible. You can fight your way out of it. There was no fighting. You knew you were completely powerless to this. That terrified me to my core. To share your story with us, head on over to True Scary Story. And fill out the form. And if you know of somebody who might like this podcast, send it to them. Links are in your app and in the description of this episode. And if you want to support the show and listen without ads, try out Scary Plus. It's free for 2 whole weeks and then 4. $99 a month. You can cancel whenever you want. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary. Everyone see you soon. Please listen to the story If I Die Before I Wake. From shadowy figures and chilling whispers to a creature running at her in the dark. Her childhood home was a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. My name is Edwin, and here is Caitlin's true scary story. I grew up in Ohio growing up there. I was always told that Ohio was the most haunted state in the U.S. Apparently, we had around 111 supposedly haunted locations. Basically, if you wanted an amusement park, you'd have to take a bit of a drive. But if you wanted a haunted location, you'd probably have to drive right down the road. And that was normal growing up there. I grew up learning about the paranormal. My mother even told me. I grew up around it before I was even aware. I was told everything about life and death, angels and demons, and my mom even gave me a teddy bear. That spoke a prayer. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray my Lord my soul to keep. And if I die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. The prayers scared me some nights, thinking about why I wouldn't wake up the next morning. And some nights I felt protected no matter what. My mom told me stories about how someone in the family had passed away, and she used to wear cat-shaped glasses. Apparently, during my birthday party, a balloon had floated to the ceiling, and I had pointed to it and said to my mother, "There was a lady with pointy glasses holding it." My mother cried that day. I don't remember this event, but I remember when it first started, noticing that something was off. I grew up in a house that had 2 rooms. My parents had to sleep in the living room on the couch, while my siblings and I shared the rooms upstairs. Us 3 girls had to share a room, while my brother had his own. The house had 2 bathrooms, one usable and one not. And in the bathroom that was not usable, there is this huge metal thing in the center of the bathroom. My mom explained that it was possibly an old sewing machine that got left behind. But when I tell you that this room was made of nightmares, I meant it had cracked old tiles, 1 window, and no working lights at all. And it was always dark in there, just a room you did not want to go into. My parents did make it off limits, but children will be children. I remember laying in bed and being able to see that bathroom entrance from my bedroom. A part of me always believed I saw a figure in a top hat standing there. Imagine that as a child, a man figure, just standing at your doorway next to the bathroom. That always scared you. Along with this, my mother telling me, I saw a man with a large mark on his face next to my bed when I was going to sleep. I don't recall this either, but apparently I was very shaken by it. I started crying. My uncle was babysitting us kids. We were allowed on the computer for 30 minutes to play that one pinball game on the old computer in the dining room. I was a kid, so I was always losing the game, but having fun while doing it. But this night was different. I lost like any normal night, but a pop-up window had appeared, and I thought my game had crashed, but I don't remember what the message had said to me. I remember though seeing a pixelated demon head opening, closing its mouth while an awful noise played. It was dark and deep laughter that became so immensely and loudly distorted that you could barely tell was laughing. I screamed and ran for my uncle, who was already on his way. I was so shaken by this as well. I slept against him on the couch, to my favorite TV show at the time. I chalked this up to be possibly a computer virus, It was the early 2000s. Viruses were going crazy at that time. You see, I like to try to debunk it. I want to be a rational person. But sometimes, there are things that we can't rationalize. There's another time where I was walking down the stairs at night, and I saw a shadow of a man getting closer to me. But when I expect to see the man, as the shadow approaches, only my cat walks by instead with no man in sight. Another time, my dad invited his brother over, and as the adults played cards and board games, my sister and I were upstairs, singing to our Disney princess radio. Out of nowhere, we heard a bang. Upon looking at the window, we saw a hand. The fingers and palms were all different colors. We could hear all the adults downstairs. My uncle, my dad, and my mother. We didn't own a ladder. And my dad and uncle walked around the house multiple times while my mother consoled us. That's when I realized I wasn't imagining things, because my sister saw it too. And from that point on, things got more aggressive and more terrifying, more physical. We had a small hole in the wall against the stairs, and for some reason, being a kid, I stuck a pencil into it. I did have an eerie feeling about it at the time, but blew it off, and then something grappled. I remember the pencil being yanked so hard. My body hit the wall, and as I yanked it back, whatever it was, yanked harder, until I eventually let go, because I was scared. I debated looking in the hole, but decided against it. Rats or mice can't tug on stuff that hard, and I can't rationalize it. Maybe my father was on the other side, working on the wall, but no. This hole was pitch black. I would have seen the exit hole had there been one. I remember playing patty cake on those very same stairs with my older sister. Suddenly, she did not fall. She did not slip. She got pushed and tumbled down 3 stairs. Her nose was bleeding, and my father immediately yelled at me, thinking I had pushed her. My big sister had defended me. She looked shocked and pale, but she never spoke about it after that. I thought that would be the climax of it all. But I was wrong, because this memory here will always make me believe in the paranormal, no matter who tells me. It was just an over-imagination incident. I know and remember fully what happened that night. When I was little, I loved snuggling to my mother. So, I would go downstairs and sleep with her on the couch. I remember being so happy and excited, like I always was when I got to sleep with my mom, after waking up halfway through the night. But going down the stairs, I stopped near the bottom. I thought maybe the dogs my parents had to keep for my dad's cousin was eating, but he was outside in the shed, where he could go outside and take care of his business, or go inside and sleep against this big Care Bear stuffed animal I'd given him that night. Cats could not make this noise. Imagine hearing someone eat sloppy. Messy, like whatever they were eating was something wet. Imagine foods like spaghetti enchiladas. Things like that, and someone wolfing it down, as if they were on a time limit, smacking lips, slurping, chewing with mouth open, mouth full type noises. But I knew this wasn't human immediately. I knew why. Because imagine the sounds with aggressive noises too. Grunts, growls, heavy breathing, and then, to top it off, I heard cracking, like whatever it was eating had bones. It was snapping, crunching, and eating it. I thought my parents had died. I had to do something. And in my brain, I had to see what was happening. What if my parents needed help? Looking back, I don't know if I was curious or just brave. I felt electricity shoot through my nerves by the sound alone. I don't know what made me investigate further, other than my parents possibly being in danger. I needed to have answers. I stood in front of the living room doorway, trying to strain my eyes to see anything in the pitch-black room. And I stood there without minutes, and then I heard it. A grunt, an abrupt, confused short grunt, as if it acknowledged me, as if it didn't know I was standing there. And I was caught at the wrong place, wrong time. There was this deafening pause. I couldn't even hear my heart pounding, but I felt it. My breath pitched. If I stayed perfectly still, I would be okay. That maybe if I didn't move a muscle, whatever this thing was couldn't see me or hear me. Maybe it would leave me alone. Maybe I could leave and get help or call someone. I don't know. All I knew at the time was not to move and to not make a peep. My heart, I'm sure, was pounding so hard someone could easily feel it. I truly thought this was how I was going to die. And then running. It was running. I could hear it rapidly coming at me in the darkness. I knew it was dangerous. I knew it could outrun me. I stayed perfectly still. My eyes kept flicking to the light switch in front of me. The noise was hypnotizing. Alone, it's all I could focus on. And then deafening as it got closer and closer. It was running on 4 legs. I could hear that much snarling and growling loudly. Again, I have no clue what came over me to actually move, but I remember why I did it. I can only describe it as a mother's love and a trust with her child. My mom told me multiple times paranormal hates lights. She even gave me a nightlight in my room after finding out about all the stories. I told her I trusted my mother and I didn't know what else to do. Right as I could hear it nearing the doorway, I lunged forward and flicked the light on. Nothing. All the noises stopped. It was silent. My eyes adjusted to the light as I stared in every nook, trying to find anything that would scream danger to me, but nothing. Even as a little girl, I wanted to rationalize this. My father was sleeping on the floor. My mother sleeping on the couch, undisturbed. Both sleeping peacefully. No scratch marks in the carpet. An empty pizza box door locked. No animal's TV off. Remote on the side table, absolutely nothing. I turned off the light. I didn't want to wake my parents, but I stood there in case I heard it again. But silence. I ran over to my mother and climbed on top of her as fast as I could, burying myself against her body as I tried to sleep. And eventually, somehow I did. After that incident, all those things stopped. I grew up and never really spoke about it. Unless talking about paranormal stuff, I will always hold these memories fond in my heart. And despite growing out of these beliefs, I saw into adulthood, I will also. Always be fond of my mom's loyalty to her faith and teaching me it as a young girl to this day. She's still religious and speaks to me about that faith. I spoke to her about growing up in that house, where it all started for me. I wanted to hear her point of view, now that I was adult and I could understand better. I started off by telling her that my earliest memory I could recall was seemingly crawling on the floor, and everything had a yellow tint to it, and I was heading to a bowl on the ground, and I heard a high-pitched dog bark. She was shocked and confirmed that she remembered that day too. Apparently, I had a habit of trying to eat out of the dog's bowl, and the small dog we had named Sassy chased after me. and actually tried to attack me over it. She was shocked I remembered that. It's what I believe my first conscious memory. I told her I remember other stuff and went on about the paranormal things. She 100% agrees with me. Her and my father, actually. My father, I don't believe, was a believer of the paranormal until we lived in that house. And she confirmed and stated we lived in a haunted house and that paranormal things happened to them as well. Remember, the man by my bed with the mark on his face and neck. Earlier in the story, my parents believe that was my grandfather that night. My grandfather had a birthmark on his cheek, down to his neck. I saw the photos. My grandfather died before I was born. My father was only 17 when he lost him. That was really rough for my father. He was a hardworking man. He had 5 children. He was very work-motivated. He was a family guy, and I wish I would have gotten to meet him. I really do. My dad always says he was like the father that you count on. You know, and my mother said there was a breaking point, and she was freaked out, that she came home and she was yelling at the house. Like just yelling like, we get it. If you're worried about your grandbabies, they're okay. Stop worrying about them. They're protected. They're safe. They're this. And just yelling out to any spirit that's listening, hoping it's my grandfather. And if she was able to tell him, hey, they're okay. Stop all this. He'd be able to rest easy. I remember my mom explained to me that she went to a pastor to seek advice. I know. She told me that the advice she did receive did help. But upon hearing this, I wondered if my grandpa was checking on us. In the shadow of the man. What if that was him without me noticing? I wonder what he would have thought of me. And how did he truly come to visit us? If he were hurting about having to see us in a spiritual way rather than physical. I wonder if he still checks on us every now and then. I wonder if any of our loved ones I lost check on us, if they're able to, and where they are now. But one thing I cannot shake is that night. I can find comfort in my mother's explanation, but pushing my sister along with the memory, I can't forget that couldn't be my grandpa. And to this day, I don't know what it could have been. But whatever's on the other side, I don't think I want to know what it was. Now I'm all grown up, moved out of state, and I'm in a relationship. And despite these events not happening since then, in the back of my head, I always remind myself that when I walk to the bathroom at night, when I'm home alone while my girlfriend's at work, when I least expect it as I enter a room, what if it comes back? To share your true story with our community, head on over to truescarystory.com and fill out the form. Everybody gets a response to get in touch with me. You can find links to everything in the description of this episode. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. Please listen to the story The Thing at the Top of the Stairs. In 2017 is when I was living with my parents, right before I joined the Navy. I was 18 around the time. This was my first experience with sleep paralysis. And the hag, I was in my bedroom. It was pitch black. The only illuminating light that I had was from the window. With sleep paralysis, your eyes are open, but your body can't move. I was looking at the bottom of my bed. I could see this bright green light. It kind of looked like toxic waste, like in a movie. That's kind of the color it was. I was looking at it really intensely, and I still couldn't move. I had the mumbles, like trying to get out words like help, because I couldn't move. This was my first time ever experiencing this. So this was so different. I could see that this girl, or this woman, started to form. She had her fingers up on top of her mouth, and I could see her knuckles but not her fingers. She was laughing. I could feel my body gain a little bit of life, and I just kept rocking. Then I finally jumped up, because I was so mad. I was like, who's in my house when I got up to her? She dissipate. That was my, first experience ever with the so-called hag. I didn't tell anyone because I didn't know really what it was. My dad was always the kind of guy. Ghosts aren't real, but he had a very big understanding of what the supernatural, as I could always understand. We had cousins who had played with the Ouija board. Back in the 80s, they were asking it questions. They asked the question, when are we going to die? The Ouija board gave them a date. The date the Ouija board gave them. They crash into a semi. Another semi crash in the back of them and sandwich the car. My dad, ever since that happened, he doesn't like to talk about the paranormal. He knows it's there. He doesn't want to ever talk about it. It was a very taboo subject growing up. Me and my sisters, we would talk about it sometimes, but not like that. My sister, she traced back our lineage. There's some witchcraft throughout there. We've never really gotten into anything like that in 2019. I met my husband. We had started dating. We both got stationed up in Washington when we were moving up there. He was like, hey, I'm gonna get a house with our friends. You wanna come move in? So we got this house. It was in the woods, pretty much. It was really nice. Had a really big backyard. The vibe of the house was always weird. It always felt like somebody was in there watching you. Do you hear the creaks? There is one night I remember I woke up. Our bed was against one wall, and we had a walk-in closet. And then the bathroom was right next to it. The bathroom had this white mist coming out of it. It was wrapping over my husband. I looked at it, and I thought it was so weird. There's no fog outside, there's no windows open, there's no shower on. We don't even have a humidifier in the room. I was like, I have to be dreaming, but I could see it moving. It was moving towards me. I just said, I'm gonna go to sleep. I don't want to wake him up. He's gonna just shrug it off. He's half asleep. The next day, I did tell him, I said, hey, last night there was this mist over you, and I don't know what is going on. I've never seen this before. I went into the little town that we had to. This magic shop, I need to get some sage. The white sage so I can cleanse my house. And I need something for a protection crystal. They given me some type of protection crystal. The lady was like, oh, you're in the military? I said, yes. And she said, well, because you're around all these bases. That these bases bring a lot of negative energy. You bring that home with you. I'd gotten these crystals, so you sleep with them under your pillow. And you should not feel anything. I was pretty much good after that. Didn't have any experiences. But then, me and my husband were still married. But he had gotten orders to San Francisco. And my command moved. This was right when COVID happened. I was in this apartment for 8 months until we moved. I can remember. The second time I had my experience with the hag, my husband was able to come down. They had lifted up the restrictions. We were in bed one night. I woke up. I had a bright white light. This time it was on the side of my face. I felt her hands and her feet crawling across the bed, like it felt like I liked tons. Every time they would hit. I couldn't move. She was on top of my chest. She put all of her weight on. I could hear this loud, a vacuum-like sucking sound with it. It felt like my soul was being sucked out of my body. I literally felt like my life was flashing before my eyes. I don't even remember falling to sleep back after that. I just remember I can still see everything and feel the weight on my chest. The hair was all in my face. I couldn't even see her face, but I could see her then. I could see teeth. I could see white mist from me flowing into her. And I was like, this is so weird. That was my second experience with her. We only lived there for a couple months, because I always felt that apartment had a really bad vibe. The way my room was set up was, I had this big vanity next to the bathroom. After that, I could not sleep near the mirror. There's this big superstition. Don't sleep next to mirrors. It's a portal, you know. I had to move my bed. I really didn't have a way because I had the vanity. And then my closet doors were. Those closet doors that had mirrors on them. There wasn't much I could do. And I don't like to sleep with the doors open. That I've always feel like someone's looking in. And especially in that apartment. I always felt like somebody was looking in on me. Around the time I would take my body. And I would make a triangle with a pillow over my head. So if I woke up, I wouldn't see something directly. If there was somebody in the room, or if some spirit was watching me. I had went on deployment. My husband had moved into a new house, in a military housing. I had got back from deployment in February 2022. Things were good. That's when I started to notice a month or so after. The house had a kind of a weird vibe to it. It's right next to here, next to all these bases. Military bases, they bring a lot of negative energy. It's not anything intentional. It just happens. I always felt at the top of our stairs, there was this dark mist. But it's nothing I've ever seen, like project or actually see form. But that's the only way I can feel. I can describe it's like this really dark mist. And it's sad and angry. Sean's story continues right after this stay with us. I wasn't the only one I had talked to my friend. She had felt that too. I would always feel eyes on me in the house. But it wasn't like I don't want you here. It was like I need help in a way. But then there's also, sometimes there's that angry presence. Like I really don't want you here. But I can't tell you to leave. After so long, I was just like, whatever. I kept doing the pillow thing. I didn't want to see anything. I didn't even like being in the house by myself. I started hanging out with my best friend. Me and her, I'm talking. We were doing almost every day together. When we'd have people over, drinks would be flowing and we'd like, hey, no one's allowed to drive home, so she would stay over a lot. There was one night we had went out and came back. She was there sleeping on the couch. It's a recliner set, everything. There's no way she can fall off of this, unless she actually threw herself off. She says that someone pulls her. Full force pulls her. She's the only one downstairs. It's just her. She woke up. She looked around, thinking that someone's here. There's no one there. And she was like, I turned on the TV. I sat there until 5 o'clock in the morning. And I left immediately. She was so scared. Not too long after that, we had more people over. One night, we're all sitting on the couch. It's me and the two of our other friends. Everybody had already went to bed. Him and the doorbell starts ringing. My dog's going crazy. The doorbell start ringing. I look outside. There's no one there. It's weird. My husband comes downstairs. He opens up the door. This is probably the worst thing he could have done. I think he let something in when he opened that door. He walks out, looks around. There's no one there. So going back, goes to sleep, everything's fine. Not too long after that, stuff starts moving around our house too. We had this like electric fly swatter. You get flies like crazy for some weird reason. It's probably just the heat. I remember there was one time I'm home alone by myself, sitting in the living room. It's a direct, open shot, as you can see from where our key rack is at, where that's hanging to the living room. You can see it directly. That thing is swinging back and forth, like someone had pushed it. I had not went in there at all that morning. I'm sitting there confused. No one else is home with me. I'm just watching it. I've recorded it and sent it to our group chat. I said, guys, I'm the only one home. I haven't even been in the kitchen this morning. Look at this. Everybody's like, oh, there's ghosts in the house. Me had been getting this feeling, the thing at the top of the stairs. Finally, I had myself was asking neighbors about like stuff that's happened around. The way the neighborhood is set up. It's a big courtyard in the middle. 4 streets surrounding each other. On the other side of the courtyard, there was a man. He had murdered his wife, and he had left. I've heard 2 sets of the stories, but the one I read online, it said that he had kept her in a deep freezer. For 2 years, he had said that she went missing. There was an incident in the courtyard where she had ran outside and said that she was cutting herself or something. That's what he was saying. These 2 years goes by everybody's what? Like, where is she? They're asking him, where did she goes? Like, I think she just ran off the day he's supposed to move out and move across the country. Her body's found. He threw her body in the canal. The police had found her. They knew who she was because she'd been missing. They come to his house and everything. And they're like, hey, we found your wife. He already has a whole new fiance and everything. They're about to move. He goes, oh, that's crazy. Come to find out, he was the one who did it. They expedited him back here when all that had happened. But it's not just one property. All the properties are connected with each other, especially this courtyard, is what keeps everybody connected to. I feel like maybe it was her spirit, still asking for help in a way, or just being angry that she can't leave. She's stuck there. Even till the day that we had moved out. We moved out in November of 2023. I still felt really, like, awkward and weird being in there by myself. I've just felt the heaviness of sadness and anger, of not wanting to be there and needing the help. I don't think anybody else felt that, but my friend, she was the only one that, when I spoke to her about this yesterday, she was like, no, I felt that too at the top of your stairs. She said I didn't like ever going upstairs unless you were up there, because I felt like something was up there. It's crazy I'm the only one that felt like that. But that was really that. Now we've moved to the other side, in this brand new built place. I don't really get the vibe that something is here, or anything like that. But it doesn't take long for something to show itself. So I've always been a believer, ever since I've experienced more and more and more. It makes me start to realize, like, there's more. There's more things out there. The case Sean mentioned is true and verifiable. The victim's name is Elizabeth Rick Sullivan, who had been missing in 2014. And for 2 years, nobody knew of her whereabouts when her body was found in the San Diego Bay. Investigators discovered that she had been stored in a freezer for 2 years. And even though we don't cover this specific case, on our new show called Murders. You can find other terrifying cases of what humans are truly capable of. You can find Murders on your podcast app right now. To share your own story on this podcast, go to TrueScaryStory.com. The link is in the description of this episode to get ad-free stories and to support the show. Check out scaryplus.com. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. See you soon. Please listen to the story The Shadows Are Watching You. I'm originally from Chicago, Humboldt Park. My mom was a single mom. We lived with my grandfather. We would move around a lot. They didn't have the best relationship. Unfortunately, he had practiced black magic. When we left from Humboldt Park, we moved to a small town in a suburb close by. My grandfather, grandma, uncle, they lived upstairs. It was a constant arguing. That's why a lot of negative stuff came into the house. He would do everything in his power to try to get us away from my mom, as if he wants bad things to happen to my mom. We always had a weird vibe in our house. My older sister would constantly say, "Oh, there's someone here. I feel something. There's negative energy. I don't know what it is." That didn't make us feel secure, especially when we had spirits and negativities around us. My mom got pregnant. We moved in with my mom's boyfriend, right next to this church in the area where we are. That's when the downfall really happened. My mom would work really late. We would hardly see her. One day she called me downstairs. She said she really needs to talk to me. I was actually pregnant. I didn't tell her because of how young. I was 17 at the time. She's like, "Oh, I had a dream that your grandpa came into my dream. And he said, please be careful. Watch your surroundings, be careful who you're around, who you let enter to your house." And I thought, okay, she's gonna tell me I'm pregnant. Then she starts crying, and I'm like, what's the matter? I'm like, oh my God, like she knows that I'm pregnant. And she says, I seen someone. And I said, someone, like, what do you mean? And she says, I've seen a shadow. And you're the only person I'm telling this to paint out this picture. My mom and stepdad and little sister, they lived in the basement. There was just one room that was finished. The rest of the basement was really old, and we had originally bought this house from an old couple who, her husband had recently died. She felt like it was a man. She's like, oh, maybe it's the man's spirit. He's here, but why does it feel so evil? Back when she saw him, she was in the room folding laundry. She felt presence looking at her, but there was no one else. Everyone was in school. My stepdad was at work, and my little sister was like 3 months, 4 months old when she felt his presence. She turned over to look at the first door, where the entrance is to the basement. She sees the man in black shadow. She screams and asks, "Who are you? What do you want?" Immediately picks up my little sister. 'Cause at first, she said she thought someone had entered the house. Out of nowhere, the man leaves. My mom was like, did I imagine this? Am I seeing something? Am I tired? She stayed in the basement for like an hour. She went upstairs. She checked the dining room, kitchen, bathroom, everywhere. She didn't see anything. This was months later. It was pretty early. 7:38 in the morning, I walked downstairs, lay down, drifted back to sleep. Like I said, it was pretty early. It's really hard for me to wake up. I'm a very deep sleeper. Something heavy was in the presence of the room that I was in. I felt someone was watching me. I look up, and there Black Otto is. People ask me, how does he look? What is he wearing? It's literally nothing. It's just black in the shadow. I was so tired I just went back to sleep. In 2017, we moved to a bigger house, a couple towns down to fit the entire family. My dog, he would constantly, bark at the walls or bark at the window. For some reason, my son, every single night, he would cry. He would wake up cry. We would put him on our bed, and we would find him at the bottom of the bed or on the floor. I was slowly starting to think, maybe it's the presence of my mom. When my sister was a couple months, my sister was diagnosed with a tumor in her eye. None of us has any genetics of having tumors or cancers, or anything in that nature. My mom was confused. Oh, why did this happen to my child? My mom went to a tarot, or we call them a white witch, the good kind, not the evil kind. And they had told her, there is someone who is wishing bad upon you, your daughter, and my stepdad. So my mom went and did this kind of religion. I don't know what it is. I feel like that plays a part of why negative stuff happens to us. Because my mom would try to find the easy road. If it didn't work, go to the another religion. I feel like my mom was allowing different spirits to come into our home. The last religion she's in, they would do sacrifices to animals, chickens and goats and things like that. She would make us go with her sometimes. I would find her, sometimes putting pictures up of her boss and lighting up a candle and wanting to wish bad upon him. She initiated me to be in this practice that she was in. I told her, are you sure this is holy? This is what this is for, so I can be closer to God. And she's like, yeah, this religion, this practice gets us closer to God. You wear these beads around your neck, different color beads. When I moved out of her house, I laid those beads on the table, and I was not going to take that with me. Because I'm not part of it. So it's why are you haunting me or coming after me? You can stick with my mom. Eventually. My sister got better from the tumor in her eye, but negative energy latched onto my mom. When we went to a new apartment a couple towns over, everything was fine. We never fought. My son was great. He was the happiest baby ever. That's when I'm maybe it is my mom. Because whatever someone put towards her, it's latched onto her. I'ma keep my distance. We moved into this apartment nearby. That's the one that I'm in right now. A couple years ago in 2020, my husband decided to go with his best friend to Vegas. It was just gonna be me and my 2 kids. I asked my sister if she can stay, and help me. I put one to sleep in his room and one to sleep in mine. My sister tells me, oh, I'm gonna go do something. This was at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. I told her, wake me up when you get back, so I can sleep with the baby. And she's okay, fine. I'll see you give me your keys. Blah, 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 okay. I fell asleep and woke up in my dream. I look up, that's exactly how I left it. The TV is on my son's next to me. My eyes are adjusting. I see the shadow man. It's been forever since I've seen him. In seconds. He was from the door right next to my shoulder. And he grabbed my shoulder. I start yelling and screaming. I can feel it in my body that I'm screaming. My sister wakes me up, and it's her. She was so scared, are you okay? Calm down. It's me, I told her. I'm oh. There was a man by the door. He was in my dream, standing right there looking at me. And then he grabbed me and she was like, oh, that's why you screamed. I barely touched you. I was tapping your shoulder for a good minute. Calling your name, I asked her. Are you sure you didn't grab me? She's like, no. I was just tapping you, like with my hand. I sleep with my oldest son. He has special needs, and my husband sleeps literally just across the room from me, to sleep with my youngest son. A couple weeks ago, we were talking. The light was on. The fan was on high. So I told him, "Can you turn down the fan? I don't know why you have the fan so high. Turn it down and turn off the light before you leave." He says, "Okay, babe." Turns on the fan, turns off the light. "I love you. I'll see you tomorrow morning, okay?" From there, I don't even remember going to sleep. I am in my dream. I see my husband walking out of the door. I don't see his face, just the back of his head and his body leaving the door. I'm screaming, "Babe, you forgot to turn off the light." And then something immediately clicks in my head. Wait, this already happened. I look up, and the minute I look up to the light, it turns off on its own. The black shadow is standing inches away from me. I grab the phone, turn on the flashlight, and I'm pointing to his face. It's all black. He slowly backs up to the corner. I jump up, turn on the light from the string. He's gone. Now I wake up fully, and I'm standing in real life. Turn on my hand on the string to turn on the light. With my phone in my hand, with the flashlight on, I'm looking around. I'm like, where did he go? Where did he go? My son's sound asleep. I turned off the light quickly again, took my phone, went to the other room. The minute I open the door, he wakes up and I'm like, "Did you hear me calling you?" And he's like, "Oh, I thought that was a dream. I swear I heard you saying, babe. But I felt like I was dreaming because I was falling asleep." So I told my mother-in-law the next day. She's a really religious person, and she's like, "You really need to pray." My sister already told me that. She had an experience with this shadow man also. This is another sister that experienced it in my house. It's almost the same experience she was like, in the couch in my living room. She felt something watching her. When she turned around, the man was by the door looking at her. She just turned back around and went back to sleep. When I would talk to my husband about this, he asked, "What if it's your grandpa who passed away?" I considered him as a father. It can't be him, because if it was him, why would my grandpa hide his face? What does he want? I want to see who this is. Why does this person keep bothering us? It doesn't hurt us. It just watches us. That's the disturbing part. Why are you watching us? Like what? What are you trying to gain from watching us? I hope he doesn't bother my kids. I wouldn't want my kids to go through that and be scared. They do have their moments where they're like, "Why? I don't want to go to the living room unless you turn on the light." My oldest son, if I get up to use the bathroom, or if I get up to get ready, he runs to my side like he cannot stay by himself. He'll run to the next room to be with my son, my other son, because he would not be by himself. I don't want them to experience anything. Tell us about your true scary story by going to truescarystory.com and filling out the form. Your story could be shared with all of us. To listen ad-free, check out Scary Plus through scaryplus.com or get in touch with me directly. If you have questions about it, I'll leave links to everything in the description of this episode. When I tried sending my story the first time, it wasn't allowing me to send it. I filled out the form, but then the whole emote turns blank. Like it's still blank to this day. So my husband on my baby doesn't want to send. He's like, oh, I was trying to tell you something. The man doesn't want you to expose him. Thank you very much for listening. Keep it scary, everyone. See you soon. See you soon.